First of all, I'd like to remind and seek for your cooperation in conducting this event smoothly by following these respective terms and conditions. First, for those joining from filter room using guest mode, please rename your account username with your name underscore your institution. Second, please mute your audio, but do not forget to turn on your video and use the provided filter background of this event. Third, you can drop your question regarding to the topic in the provided Slido link for discussion sessions later. You can find it also in the Hey link shown in your room chat. Last but not least, we'd like to remind all participants to fill the attendance list and the evaluation form in the prospective link so that you are eligible to get the e-certificate.
The webinar will be start in 3, 2, 1.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, shalom, om swastiastu, namo buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Following up the successful of previous NEXUS event, welcome you all to the second webinar series of NEXUS, which stands for Narcotic Law Enforcement Knowledge Sharing of Aceh Customs. In the first event, our topic was optimizing narcotic law enforcement through utilizing information technology. And filled with incredible speakers from the DA, or Drug Enforcement Administration, ABF, or Australian Border Force, and Naval Criminal Investigative Service, or NCIS. And now for the second series, the theme is global trends in narcotic trafficking, emerging challenges, and strategic responses. This event represents our commitment to build a strong connection and collaboration by expanding knowledge through sharing sessions across countries in terms of combating narcotics as part of Indonesia's Customs Office. To be mentioned that this event is also part of our ceremonial of Hari Uang Indonesia. Hereby I, Ima, standing here as your master of ceremonies in this event, on behalf of the committee, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you for taking time to attend this event. It gave me a great pleasure to be the anchor for this webinar, and I am excited to be hosting it. It is an honor to me to inform you that among us here, we have the Director General of Indonesian Customs and Excise, Mr. Raskolani, who gave these opening remarks and keynote speech. Sarah Bari, Vice Secretary of ABF for Indonesia and Timor-Leste. And then we have the Director of Aceh Regional Customs and Excise Office, Bapak Safwadi. We also like to introduce and greet our exciting panels of speakers lined up for you today, and we hope that you'll find their presentation and discussions informative and engaging. So here they are, our incredible speakers. First, we have Mr. Pranab Kumar Das from World Customs Organization, or WCO. Welcome, Mr. Das. Good morning. Great. Next, we have Mrs. Kavin Fade Supaponte Fasakol from United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, or UNODC. Welcome, Mrs. D. Good morning. Okay. Now, I also like to greet Mr. Sharif Hidayat from Directorate of Narcotic Interdiction. Good morning, Mr. Sharif.
Good morning, Ananta. I Maya. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Not to forget, I also like to introduce our moderator for today, Mr. Syed Daulay from Banda Aceh Customs and Excise Office. And of course, I'd like to greet all participants who are joining us today and coming from across institutions and even countries. Our beloved Indonesian Customs and Excise Officer, the National Narcotics Board's officer, narcotic law enforcement officers, counterparts, and finance attaché from other countries such as Australia, Hong Kong, China, Cambodia, and etc. To warm up this wonderful event, I've already prepared you a special poem with rhythm, also known as pantun, which will be delivered in Bahasa Indonesia. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, izinkan saya membawakan pantun dalam bahasa Indonesia, mohon bantuan cakepnya. Makan mie di Kota Matak. Makan sus di Mangga 2. Kami ucapkan selamat datang dalam NEXUS series kedua. Thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before we start, let me explain today's agenda. First, we have the opening sessions, and then singing the national anthem of Indonesia Raya. After that, there will be the opening remarks and keynote speech from our Director General of Indonesian Customs and Excise, Mr. Raskolani, continued by further session. And then the main event, led by our moderator, Mr. Seadolai. And the last one is closing statement. But before we move to the next agenda, I would like to wait for Mr. Raskolani first to join today's event. But before that, we would like to share with you a video.
Urang yang galak pegah jujur, meteme lehal. Dipercaya, galak, dan rasa tabe. Kejujuran dan integritas merupakan suatu kesatuan yang membentuk harkat dan martabat manusia sejati. Aceh dan beragam budayanya telah menunjukkan kepada kita bahwa integritas merupakan identitas. Kantor Wilayah Bea dan Cukai Aceh sebagai bagian dari instansi Direktorat Jenderal Bea dan Cukai serta membawahi 5 kantor pelayanan dari Sabang hingga Langsa mengabdikan diri untuk menjadikan integritas sebagai identitas dalam pelaksanaan tugas sehari-hari. Sebagai upaya mewujudkan zona integritas menuju wilayah bebas dari korupsi ZIWBK, kami berkomitmen untuk melakukan langkah perubahan dengan menerapkan 6 area perubahan ZIWBK. Moto kami yakni Indatu Pewasilah, berarti bahwa kami menginisiasi, mendampingi dengan tulus, serta melaksanakan upaya pengawasan intensif tanpa lelah.
Kanwil Bea Cukai Aceh dan seluruh jajaran di bawahnya selalu berprinsip bahwa tugas dan fungsi pengawasan dan pelayanan adalah yang utama, tanpa mengesampingkan pentingnya kemajuan perekonomian di seluruh Provinsi Aceh. Ke-23 kabupaten dan kota di Provinsi Aceh merupakan wilayah yang tidak kecil, namun bersama instansi terkait lainnya, kami bisa melakukan langkah perubahan untuk mewujudkan zona integritas WBK. Untuk itu, kami berharap agar Kanwil Aceh dapat berpartisipasi aktif berjuang bagi kesejahteraan negeri. Kanwil Bea Cukai Aceh makmur, bea cukai makin baik.
Welcome, Mr. Askolani, our Director General of Indonesian Customs and Excise. Good morning. Okay, since Mr. Askolani is already with us here, moving to the next agenda, ladies and gentlemen, we invite you all to sing the national anthem of Indonesia Raya. Therefore, we're cordially asking you both joining from this room and from virtual room to stand up and have a full attention on it. Thank you. All of the participants, you may have a seat. Without any further ado, allow us to invite the Director General of Indonesian Customs and Excise to give the opening remarks and keynote speech and to officially start our webinar series today. So everyone, please welcome Mr. Askolani.
Thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed of colleagues. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon you. It is honored to be here today virtually at this important international seminar on global trends in narcotics trafficking, emerging challenges and strategic responses. First and foremost, I would like to express my deepest appreciation to DG Customs and Excise of Aceh for organizing this timely and significant event. In the face of one of the most pressing challenges of our time, narcotic trafficking, it is imperative that we are, as policymakers, law enforcement agency, and global citizen, come together to share knowledge, experience, and strategies. Ladies and gentlemen, narcotic trafficking is a global issue that transcends borders and affects all aspects of society. The complexity and sophistication of this illicit trade continue to evolve, presenting new challenges for government and law enforcement agencies worldwide. Indonesia, due to its strategic geographical location, find itself at the crossroads of this global network. Our nation is not only a transit point, but also a target market for narcotics. This reality compels us to constantly adapt our strategies to protect our people and our economy from the detrimental effect of narcotic trafficking. The theme of this seminar, Global Trend in Narcotics Trafficking, Emerging Challenges and Strategic Responses, is particularly pertinent as we negative through these evolving threats as traffickers become more innovative, employing digital technology, exploiting global supply chains, and leveraging sophisticated network. Our response must also evolve it. It is within this content that Ministry of Finance, through DG Custom Excise, play a pivotal role in the national and global fight against narcotics. The DGBC is at the forefront of the Indonesia effort to intercept and prevent the smuggling of narcotics. As a key agency within the Ministry of Finance, DGBC is responsible for the regulation and supervision of goods entering and leaving the country, making it a crucial player in controlling the flow of illicit substance. With the advanced technology such as non-intrusive inspection system and a dedicated workforce, DGBC has successfully thwarted numerous attempts to smuggle narcotics into Indonesia. However, we must recognize that enforcement alone is not enough. To enhance our effectiveness, DGBC has been actively collaborating with international customs organizations and participation in joint operation to share intelligence and best practice. This international cooperation is vital because narcotic trafficking is transnational crime that requires a coordinated global response. By working together, we can disrupt trafficking network, cut off the supply of illicit drugs, and hold those responsible accountable. In addition to enforce an international collaboration, the Indonesia state budget plays a critical role in supporting our comprehensive approach for combating narcotics. The state budget is not just a financial document, it is a strategic tool that reflect our nation priorities, including the fight against narcotics. Through target budget allocation, the state budget provides the necessary resource for law enforcement agency, including DGBC, to enhance their capability in detecting, in intercepting narcotics. Moreover, the state budget also fund rehabilitation program, public awareness campaign, and community development initiative aimed at reducing demand for narcotics. These initiatives are crucial because they address the root cause of drug abuse and help to build resilient communities that are less susceptible to the influence of narcotics. By investing in education, healthcare, and economic opportunities, we can reduce the allure of narcotics and create a safer, healthier society. Furthermore, the state budget support the modernization of our financial regulatory framework to combat money laundering and other financial crimes associated with narcotic trafficking. The illicit drug trade generates enormous profit, much of which is laundered through legitimate financial system. By strengthening our financial regulation and enhancing the capacity of our financial intelligence units, we can disrupt the flow of dirty money and weaken a financial network that sustain narcotic trafficking. With the roles of DGBC and state budget are critical, it is clear that the fight against narcotics cannot be won by one institution or even one country alone. It requires a comprehensive and collaborative approach involving multiple stakeholders, governments, international organizations, law enforcement agencies, civil society, and private sector. Internationally, we must continue to strengthen our partnership through bilateral and multilateral agreement, joint operation, and intelligence sharing. Domestically, we must ensure that all relevant agencies, custom, the National Narcotic Agency, the police, and other government bodies are working together seamlessly with the clear communication and shared objective. Moreover, the role of civil society and the private sector cannot be overstated. Community organization, NGOs, and business have a vital part to play the prevention effort, public education, and rehabilitation services. The private sector, particularly financial institutions, also has a responsibility to implement stringent anti-money laundering measures and report suspicious activity that may be linked to narcotic trafficking. In conclusion, as we gather here today, I urge all of us to renew and commitment to this fight. The challenges are great, but they are not insurmountable. With the collective will, all concerted effort of all stakeholders, we can make significant strides and eradicate the threat of narcotics from our society. The Ministry of Finance, through the Director General of Customs and Excise, supported by the strategic allocation of the state budget, stand ready to continue the fight with determination and resolve. I am confident that discussion and insight generated during the seminar will contribute to our shared mission of creating a safer, healthier world and free world, the short of narcotics. Let us work together to protect our nation, our communities, and our future generation from the harms of this illicit trade. Thank you. Again, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much for the delightful keynote speech and also your opening remarks, our Director General of Indonesian Customs and Excise. And thus, it also marks that the NEXUS webinar series 2 has now been officially begun. Mr. Raskolani, our head office, distinguished guests, distinguished speakers, and all the participants, to make sure we will not miss any moment for today's event, we invite you all to take some pictures with us. So please make sure that everyone's ready, especially from Filtoro. Please make sure that you are ready in front of your camera. I'll count to 3 and our operator will take the pictures of us. So for the first pose, everyone please follow this pose. Okay. I'll count to 1, 2, 3. Okay, all right, for the second pose. It's a freestyle pose, so everyone please give your best pose. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, what a great ambience that we have here now. So proceed to the main agenda. So before that, Mr. Raskolani, should have any other agenda, you may leave the room. We do really appreciate and feel honored that you have taken your time to be with us today. So everyone, please give a big round of applause for Mr. Raskolani. Moving to the next agenda, which will be delivered by our incredible speakers and also will be guided by Mr. Sehat Daulay as our moderator. So Mr. Sehat Daulay is the head of internal compliance and dissemination sections of Banda Aceh Customs and Excise Office. So everyone, please welcome Mr. Sehat Daulay.
Thank you, Clima, for the great opening. The speakers, the honorable audiences, welcome to the second series of Nexus. Our theme is the recent global trends in narcotic trafficking, emerging challenges, and strategic responses. In the next 90 minutes, we will delve into this topic by the guidance of our expert speakers for today from the WCO, from the UNODC, and from the DGCE. This webinar will be really impactful to all of us for two main reasons. First, the theme is among the key aspects of our duty as community protectors. Second, the speakers we are about to listen to are among the most experienced in this topic. So let's take the most of it. Dear audiences, why is talking about narcotics important? Did you know that according to Indonesian National Narcotic Board, there are over 3.3 million illegal drug users in Indonesia. Indonesia is among countries with the highest illegal drug abuse in the world. Law enforcement agencies have continuously busted illegal drug trafficking flowing to Indonesia. Indonesia has declared a tough on drugs stance by enforcing narcotic law strictly and even sending the traffickers to death row. The DGCE is among law enforcement agencies waging war against illegal drug trafficking in Indonesia. In the next 30 minutes, the first part of our webinar today, we will explore the DGCE strategic response on narcotic trafficking. Our first speaker will be the Director of Narcotics Interdiction of the DGCE, Mr. Sarif Hidayat. Let me introduce him briefly to you. Mr. Sarif Hidayat is currently the Director of Narcotic Interdiction of the DGCE. He has been serving at the DGCE for over 30 years now. He earned Master of Economics from the University of Illinois, USA. Dear audiences, it is a great honor for me to present the Director of Narcotic Interdiction of the DGCE, Mr. Sarif Hidayat. Sarif, platform is yours.
Diulang Mas, gimana?
Baik Pak, silakan Pak. Time is yours.
Oh, untuk presentasi maksudnya. Udah mulai ya?
Siapa Pak?
Oh, baik, terima kasih. Yang kami hormati distinguished Pak Dirjen, distinguished all the speaker from various country, and also distinguished all of participant from all over Indonesia, custom officials. So my name is Sarif Hidayat. Thank you very much for this opportunity. That in this opportunity we would like to share several things concerning the current trend of the narcotics in Indonesia, and also the strategic responses on narcotic trafficking, how we would doing responses to the current narcotics smuggling and trading narcotic internationally that really now getting bigger and bigger. And I think many of the audience Indonesian, maybe it's will be better for me to use Indonesian language probably, Pak. I'm so sorry because I think better to use Indonesian language compare with using English, because I would like to be understood all of the information clearly and 100% by audience, mainly in Indonesian. Yeah. But for any foreigners and any others that's not using English as a first language, I think the slide is already in English language, so it will also easier for you to understand directly from the slide. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, terima kasih. Jadi yang pertama adalah tentunya saya mengucapkan terima kasih kepada rekan-rekan dari Aceh yang sudah mengadakan acara ini. Saya kira ini acara memang sangat-sangat penting karena saat ini perdagangan narkotika di Indonesia masih cukup besar. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, kemudian juga dapat kami sampaikan bahwa pada saat ini kejahatan internasional ya, transnational organized crime atau sering disingkat sebagai TNOC, itu memang merupakan suatu kejahatan yang sifatnya internasional dan kemudian juga melibatkan berbagai negara, dan juga intinya adalah untuk mengejar profit ya. Dia tidak mengenai apa yang kejahatan yang mereka lakukan itu bisa macam-macam, bisa dari mulai perdagangan manusia, perdagangan narkotika, kemudian juga perdagangan senjata dan sebagainya. Nah, khusus untuk kali ini kita akan membahas transnational organized crime yang memang memperdagangkan barang-barang yang sifatnya narkotika yang memang ilegal untuk dipergunakan di Indonesia ya. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, tentunya mengenai transnational organized crime ini merupakan hal yang sangat mengganggu, sangat membahayakan terhadap masyarakat Indonesia pada saat ini, karena sampai dengan saat ini sudah lebih kurang sekitar 5,4 ton ya, untuk tahun ini aja sudah 5,4 ton narkotika yang masuk. Ini adalah jumlah yang sangat besar, dan saya perkirakan mungkin apabila pacunya tetap seperti ini, maka pada akhir daripada tahun ini mungkin bisa menembus lebih dari 6 ton sebagaimana capaian yang dicapai pada tahun lalu. Dan tentunya kejahatan internasional tentang drug trafficking ini membahayakan karena ini menyerang generasi masyarakat Indonesia yang apabila terpapar oleh narkotika maka produktivitas menjadi rendah, bahkan tidak produktif, sehingga cenderung membebani, dan kemajuan Indonesia yang kita mencanangkan tahun 2045 menjadi negara maju itu kemungkinan akan bisa terganggu dengan sangat signifikan dengan narkotika ini. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, juga dapat kami sampaikan bahwa transnational organized crime ini merupakan bisnis yang sangat besar ya. Di tahun 2009 saja itu diperkirakan menghasilkan sekitar 870 billion US dollar. Ini jumlah ini besar sekali ya, yang lebih kurang sama dengan 1,5% daripada global GDP, dan lebih dari 6% daripada official development assistance yang kita dapatkan pada tahun-tahun tersebut ya. Dan juga sekitar mencapai mendekati 7% daripada ekspor daripada barang-barang yang ada di dunia ini. Halaman selanjutnya. Ya, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, illegal, kita berbicara tentang transnational organized crime, kita khusus sekarang mengarah kepada perdagangan ilegal daripada obat-obatan ya, obat-obatan. Jadi Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, perdagangan obat-obatan yang dan juga transnational organized crime yang lain ini merupakan hal-hal yang sangat-sangat berbahaya. Tentunya juga ini adalah juga seringkali berkaitan dengan pencucian uang. Jadi seringkali uang-uang yang berasal daripada transnational organized crime ini kemudian mereka lakukan pencucian uang, sehingga kita pun patut untuk melakukan pengawasan yang lebih mendalam lagi terhadap transaksi keuangan yang utamanya berasal daripada narkotika ya. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, kemudian juga dari sisi ekonomi jelas ya, bahwa perdagangan narkotika yang sedemikian besar ya, yang sedemikian besar dengan harga saat ini bisa menembus sekitar 2 juta ya, untuk per ini 2 juta rupiah per gram, ini memang luar biasa gitu. Dari sisi ekonomi, maka nilai yang diperdagangkan itu bisa menembus sampai dengan mendekati 100 triliun di dalam satu tahunnya itu. Ini jumlah yang sangat-sangat besar. Kita melihat juga ekonomi bergeraknya, ekonomi yang tidak memang tidak termonitor secara langsung ya, sehingga dia merupakan clandestine ekonomi atau underground ekonomi yang ini justru juga sangat mengganggu terhadap perekonomian secara nasional. Kemudian di sisi sosial jelas social impact-nya sangat-sangat jelas ya, bahwa seseorang yang terkena narkotika itu menjadi dia tidak produktif. Kemudian selain daripada tidak produktif, dia juga bisa mengganggu terhadap keluarganya. Seringkali seorang pengguna narkotika itu dia cenderung untuk merusak ekonomi keluarganya, bahkan barang-barang yang di rumahnya bisa dijual, bahkan sampai dengan harta benda yang dimiliki orang tuanya juga bisa dijual. Tentunya ini adalah merupakan hal yang sangat-sangat mengganggu dari sisi sosial ya. Kita lihat di tahun 2017 saja ekonomi kita itu juga sekitar 84,7 triliun yang sudah hilang ya. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, kemudian juga kejahatan obat-obatan ini adalah merupakan suatu proxy war ya. Proxy war itu artinya perang yang tidak imbang gitu di dalam melemahkan suatu negara. Kalau zaman dulu di dalam peperangan, kalau zaman dulu kita berperang itu adalah antara sesama soldier, sesama tentara ya, menyerang satu sama lain dengan mempergunakan senjata dan musuhnya jelas kelihatan. Kalau yang sekarang adalah apabila suatu negara ingin melemahkan negara lain, maka cukup mereka kirimkan narkotika. Gitu. Mereka kirimkan narkotika sehingga masyarakat negara tersebut menjadi lemah, menjadi tidak potensial, menjadi kan negara tersebut menjadi lemah secara ekonomi dan juga tidak akan maju lah, kira-kira seperti itu ya. Sehingga pada ujungnya negara tersebut bisa rontok runtuh ya dari sisi SDM-nya maupun dari sisi perekonomiannya. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, kemudian juga diperkirakan bahwa di dalam tahun 2017 pengguna narkotika ada sekitar 3,37 juta di Indonesia ya. Jumlah ini sangat besar, dan jumlah ini kalau kita bandingkan dengan Singapura, maka Singapura itu hanya satu negara Singapura lah kira-kira gitu, karena penduduk Singapura sekitar 3,5 juta orang ya. Jadi bisa dilihat demikian besarnya pengguna obat di Indonesia, sehingga dari sejak tahun 2016-2017 Indonesia bukan lagi merupakan negara transit. Kalau dulu sering disebut sebagai negara transit, tetapi sekarang sebagai negara yang memang user, kira-kira seperti itu. Kemudian Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, diperkirakan juga di dalam 1 tahun itu 18.000 orang yang meninggal karena obat-obatan. Lanjut ke halaman selanjutnya. Nah, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, ini adalah gambaran secara umum tentang summary daripada apa yang akan kami sampaikan. Yang pertama adalah memang sejak terjadinya COVID-19 itu terjadi tren shift daripada tren shift ya, artinya pergeseran cara-cara di dalam melakukan smugglingnya. Kemudian juga ada new concealment dan modus operandi yang baru. Kalau yang dulu modus-modus yang biasa misalkan dengan strapping dan sebagainya, nah sekarang ada mode-mode yang baru bagaimana mereka melakukan modus yang terbaru dan juga metode menyembunyikan barang-barang tersebut. Kemudian juga dapat kami sampaikan bahwa terjadi penambahan penggunaan waterway ya, penggunaan laut ya. Jadi semakin kuat, semakin kencang penggunaan pengiriman narkotika melalui ini. Bisa dimengerti kenapa, karena memang pada intinya yang namanya narkotika itu sekarang kan sudah sedemikian besar, dan pengiriman dalam jumlah besar melalui kargo udara itu tidak begitu mudah, karena mudah akan kelihatan gitu. Sehingga mereka cenderung memang mempergunakan perairan-perairan kita yang memang sangat relatif terbuka karena sedemikian banyaknya pulau di dalam melakukan smuggling narkotika ke Indonesia. Kemudian juga sekarang metode yang contactless, jadi artinya tidak ada kontak sama sekali di antara mereka di dalam menyampaikan narkotikanya dari penjual kepada end user daripada narkotika tersebut ya. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, dapat kami sampaikan juga bahwa synthetic drugs ya, terutamanya MDMA ya, dimethylamfetamin ya, dan methamphetamine banyak diproduksi di Asia Pasifik ya, dan ini juga memang merupakan hal yang cukup mengkhawatirkan karena sumber daripada MDMA dan juga methamphetamine ini tidak terlalu jauh dari Indonesia ya. Sebetulnya juga sekarang terjadi juga perubahan bagaimana mereka memproduksi ya. Kalau dulu mereka mengirimkan narkotikanya secara langsung, dan belakangan ini adalah selain mengirimkan narkotika secara langsung, mereka juga mengirimkan barang-barang yang sifatnya bahan-bahan kimia yang tidak dilarang gitu ya, dan banyak dipergunakan di dalam industri, tetapi mereka pergunakan untuk melakukan sebagai bahan baku di dalam pembuatan narkotika akhir ya. Lanjut. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, dari sini kita lihat bahwa Indonesia saat ini secara statistik penduduknya ada sekitar 273 juta ya. Ini jumlah yang sangat besar ya. Tapi terakhir juga belakangan kalau tidak salah ini sudah menembus 276 atau 278 juta. Dan 51,2% adalah orang yang bekerja, sehingga ini merupakan pasar yang potensial, yang dimana mereka apabila terpapar maka mereka bisa menembus sampai ratusan juta orang. Tentunya ini yang harus kita jaga dengan baik ya. Jangan sampai jumlah yang 3,5 juta tadi bisa menembus melebihi jumlah tersebut, karena secara umum 51% daripada orang Indonesia ini mempunyai penghasilan yang cukup untuk apabila memang mereka ingin mempergunakan bisa mempergunakan pendapatannya untuk itu. Kemudian juga kita lihat drug route adalah cukup jelas ya. Sumber narkotika itu berasal dari Amerika, dari Afrika, dari Asia, juga dari Eropa. Australia relatif tidak ada, tetapi bisa jadi juga sebagai tempat transit ya di sana. Tapi pada saat ini yang terjadi adalah Indonesia menjadi tempat transit untuk menuju ke Australia. Halaman selanjutnya. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, ini adalah yang kita dapatkan datanya dari UNODC, bahwa metamfetamin market itu berkembang dengan cepat ya di Asia Timur dan juga Southeast Asia atau di Asia Tenggara ya. Dan organized crime di daerah juga sepertinya juga mereka sering mempergunakan yang tadi saya sampaikan, mulai mempergunakan non-control chemical untuk memproduksi metamfetamin dan other synthetic drug, misalkan benzyl methyl ketone, misalkan salah satunya itu adalah barang yang memang sebetulnya bahan kimia yang umum dipergunakan di industri, tetapi ternyata bahan itu bisa dipergunakan sebagai prekursor istilahnya, bisa dibuat untuk menjadi prekursor, kemudian setelah prekursor dijadikan prekursor, sehingga pekerjaan kita sebagai custom bertambah lagi dengan kewajiban kita, keharusan kita untuk mengontrol selain prekursor dan narkotika juga adalah bahan-bahan kimia dan juga peralatan perlengkapan yang biasanya dipergunakan untuk memproduksi narkotika, sehingga bila ada misalkan kita melihat ada masuknya barang pencetak gitu ya, pencetak tablet gitu, kita harus lihat pastikan apakah pencetak tablet itu dimasukkan oleh industri farmasi atau industri obat-obatan atau industri-industri kimia lain yang memang melakukan pencetakan seperti itu. Apabila memang mereka, maka kemungkinan besar adalah legal. Tetapi apabila barang-barang tersebut dimasukkan oleh orang-orang yang perorangan, terutama itu perusahaan yang tidak jelas, nah ini menjadi perhatian yang harus kita dalami lebih lanjutnya. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, dari sini bisa dilihat bahwa rutenya memang seliweran ke sana kemari, tetapi pada intinya narkotika utamanya metamfetamin yaitu berasal dari sekitar Laut PDR Myanmar ya, dari sana. Nanti akan saya jelaskan di selanjutnya. Kemudian Indonesia juga menjadi tempat untuk melewati selain negara tujuan juga menjadi daerah transit ya, transit untuk ke Australia, juga untuk ke negara lainnya. Lanjut ke halaman selanjutnya. Nah, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, ini adalah populer drugs yang banyak dipergunakan di sekitar Asia Pasifik. Yang pertama adalah tentunya diantaranya adalah golongan opium ya, banyak dipergunakan, juga termasuk adalah obat-obatan yang seharusnya itulah legal ya, tetapi disalahgunakan. Jadi seperti tramadol, misalnya tramadol itu adalah narkotika. Sekarang banyak sekali tramadol dipergunakan, diperjualbelikan tanpa resep dokter, kemudian diselundupkan, dijadikan sebagai obat yang disalahgunakan ya. Kemudian juga Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, Indonesia jelas market yang sangat besar daripada metamfetamin. Kemudian juga heroin juga sama seperti itu. Kemudian juga untuk Australia misalkan metamfetamin dan juga kokain masih merupakan hal yang terbesar. Untuk Indonesia saat ini memang large market daripada metamfetamin, tetapi sebagian daripada pulau di Indonesia ya utamanya adalah Bali ya. Bali dan Lombok itu mereka sudah mulai mereka cenderung mempergunakan narkotika non metamfetamin seperti misalkan kokain. Lanjut ke halaman selanjutnya. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, ini adalah gambaran bagaimana kondisi pada tahun 2010 dan sebelumnya dengan tahun 2021 dan setelahnya ya. Sebelah kiri kita bisa lihat bahwa sebetulnya pada saat itu metamfetamin itu hanya ada di sekitar Thailand, Myanmar, kemudian juga di Jepang juga ada, di Korea Selatan juga ada, ya di tahun 2010, tetapi 10 tahun kemudian ya 2020-2021 seluruh Asia Timur dan Asia Tenggara itu sudah merupakan market daripada metamfetamin, sudah merupakan metamfetamin sudah merupakan obat yang sangat populer di Asia Timur. Kalau dilihat di peta itu Korea Utara tidak kelihatan, bukan karena tidak ada, tapi memang datanya tidak ada karena negara tersebut memang tertutup ya. Lanjut. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, dapat kami sampaikan ini adalah Golden Crescent Route ya. Jadi tadi saya sampaikan ada ada sumber yang dekat dengan Indonesia ya. Yang pertama adalah Myanmar, nanti saya jelaskan kemudian. Ini yang pertama saya jelaskan adalah sumber utamanya Afghanistan. Afghanistan itu adalah dulu penghasil daripada koka ya atau kokain ya. Mereka menghasilkan kokain dan itu dipergunakan sebagai sumber dana di dalam peperangan mereka gitu. Nah sekarang pada saat mereka sudah menjadi negara yang tidak melakukan peperangan, kondisi mereka itu adalah sepertinya masih bukan sepertinya, mereka itu masih diblokir lah kira-kira seperti itu oleh negara-negara lain, sehingga mereka tetap kesulitan di dalam perekonomian. Akhirnya mereka kembali lagi menghasilkan narkotika gitu. Jadi mereka menghasilkan narkotika, kokain, kemudian juga mereka juga sekarang sudah menjadi salah satu produsen terbesar untuk metamfetamin. Dapat kami sampaikan bahwa metamfetamin itu juga berasal dari sejenis pohon ya, dari pohon ephedra namanya. Pohon ephedra itu bisa tumbuh di sana dengan baik, sehingga selain kokain mereka juga menghasilkan sekarang metamfetamin, dan metamfetamin ini cukup banyak mengalir ke kita. Nah, kemudian mengingat bahwa Afghanistan ini adalah landlocked country ya, maka mereka di dalam memasarkannya itu pasti mereka harus melalui Pakistan atau melalui Iran ya. Sehingga dalam banyak hal mafia-mafia narkotika yang berasal dari Golden Crescent ini banyak dipegang oleh orang-orang Pakistan dan juga oleh orang-orang Iran. Contoh yang paling jelas adalah di sini di layar di sebelah kanan kita lihat ya. Karena Indonesia merupakan negara yang merupakan tujuan daripada metamfetamin, maka mereka membawa narkotika tersebut, metamfetamin tersebut melalui laut besar ya, melalui Hindia Samudra ya, Samudra Hindia, kemudian masuk ke Indonesia. Masuk ke Indonesia kemana? Utamanya mereka pasti adalah melalui pantai barat ya, pantai barat Sumatera, dari mulai Aceh, Sumatera Barat, kemudian juga Sumatera Selatan, Selatan Jawa Tengah, Jawa Timur, sampai ke Bali. Itu mereka membawa ke jalur sana, meskipun ombak di sana cukup besar, bisa sampai 4 meter, 5 meter kalau lagi terjadi ombak tinggi, tetapi mereka cukup berani untuk membawa barang tersebut ke sana. Lanjut. Ini adalah contoh yang kami dapatkan tahun kemarin ya. Pada tanggal 20 Februari kita bisa mengintersep satu buah kapal ikan ya, kapal ikan yang berasal dari Iran, dari Iran sana. Dari pelabuhan Iran, kapal ikan yang membawa sekitar 319 kilo narkotika. Kita intercept di laut di zona ekonomi eksklusif. Kenapa kami melakukan intercept di zona ekonomi eksklusif? Karena ada kekhawatiran apabila dia sudah sudah terlalu dekat, akan terjadi sub to sub sehingga barang yang 300 itu menyebar bisa dibagi ke berbagai kapal sehingga kita kesulitan untuk melakukan penangkapan sehingga kita langsung ditangkap daripada mother vesselnya ini, mother vesselnya. Jadi 300 kilo lebih ya langsung kita dapatkan. Apabila kita terlambat dan sudah didistribusikan ke kapal-kapal kecil yang merapat, maka bisa dipastikan tangkapan tidak akan sebesar itu ya. Halaman selanjutnya. Ini dia. So this is the result ya. There are 309 packages ya of methamphetamine, 319 kilos secara umum setelah ditimbang itu adalah sekitar 319 kilo yang dibawa oleh kapal ikan yang berasal dari Iran. Kemudian juga ada 8 kru dan obat itu disembunyikan di dalam dinding kapal dan ini tidak mudah. It's very difficult to find those drugs because it already concealed just behind the concealed inside the vessel ya, wall ya, wall yang berlapis gitu. Jadi dia disimpan di belakang wall yang berlapis. Kita juga tidak bisa langsung menemukan pada waktu itu. Sehingga setelah kita turunkan anjing pun ya, we already also send the canine dog at that time. Anjing canine tersebut bisa mendeteksi, could detect the drug, but they do not know where is it because they just sniff the large number of drug, but cannot seen. Jadi tidak kelihatan gitu ininya, tidak kelihatan barangnya. Tapi anjing sudah mendeteksi sehingga dalam kondisi seperti itu anjing hanya memastikan bahwa di kapal ini ada narkotika, tetapi di sisi mananya kita tidak tahu waktu itu ya, sehingga akhirnya dilakukan pendalaman lebih lanjut terhadap yang 8 orang tersebut. Akhirnya terbuka bahwa ternyata disembunyikan di belakang mesin ya, ada dinding di belakang mesin. Setelah dibuka dinding tersebut, dinding kapal ya, itu masih belum kelihatan. Dinding yang kedua baru, jadi ada 3 lapis dinding itu di belakang mesin tersebut ya. Oke, next please. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, jadi Golden Crescent Seizure ini memang merupakan tanggapan kita yang cukup besar ya di tahun kemarin ya. Ada sekitar 300 kilo lebih yang dimasukkan dalam satu kali pengapalan ya. Kemudian Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, selain itu juga sekarang juga banyak NPS atau New Psychoactive Substances and other chemical and raw material for clandestine lab ya. Jadi modus daripada narkotika sekarang ini adalah selain tadi memasukkan narkotika dalam bentuk narkotika dan dalam bentuk prekursor, tetapi juga sekarang dimasukkan dalam bentuk kimia-kimia biasa, di mana kimia-kimia biasa ini luput daripada perhatian kita karena dia tidak dilarang untuk masuk, tetapi ternyata barang kimia tersebut bisa dirubah menjadi prekursor dengan melalui suatu proses di laboratorium dan kemudian bisa dirubah menjadi narkotika. Jadi inilah yang terjadi belakangan ini, terjadinya produksi narkotika secara langsung di Indonesia. Jadi inilah yang disebut dengan perkembangan terbaru. Kalau dulu memasukkan narkotika dan prekursor, dan sekarang adalah memasukkan barang lain tambahannya ya, selain narkotika dan prekursor juga barang-barang kimia lainnya yang di dalam negeri kemudian dilakukan analisis kimia, dilakukan reaksi kimia dan menjadikan produksi narkotika secara langsung gitu. Kita lanjut ya ke halaman selanjutnya. Nah, ini dia, coba kelas lanjut. Nah, ini Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, ini gambaran ya. Gambar yang di sini ini adalah, ini bukan di Indonesia ini. Ini kami dapatkan, we got this data from UNODC concerning synthetic drug in Southeast Asia report ya. Jadi bisa dilihat di sini, itu adalah di tengah hutan. Ya. Tengah hutan mereka mendirikan tenda-tenda, mendirikan laboratorium, dan ini adalah clandestine lab yang ada di Myanmar untuk menghasilkan narkotika. Dan posisinya ini di mana? Ini posisinya adalah di Provinsi Shan, Myanmar ya. Jadi Myanmar itu adalah negara yang cukup besar. Ada one province called Shan. Itu adalah negara yang berbatasan langsung directly having border with China, Laos, and Thailand. Nah, di sinilah mereka memproduksi. Jadi mereka menanam pohon ephedra di sana. Kemudian mereka melakukan produksi di sana, dan ini masif gitu. Informasi yang kami dapatkan dari teman-teman penegak hukum lainnya di Indonesia, dari BNN ya, bahwa di sini mereka dijaga oleh 40.000 tentara. Kebayangkan gitu. Jadi tempat penanaman pohon ephedra ini dan juga laboratorium ataupun pabrik besar untuk memproduksi narkotika ini dijaga oleh 40.000 tentara yang kalau menurut pengakuan pemerintah Myanmar ini adalah pemberontak, tetapi menjadi tanda kutip buat kita. Kenapa mereka tidak bisa menangani seperti itu kan kira-kira gitu. Tapi ya itulah yang terjadi, bahwa intinya adalah bahwa di provinsi Shan inilah diproduksi narkotika terbesar di dunia saat ini, utamanya untuk metamfetaminnya. Dan memang luar biasa, selain metamfetamin mereka juga menghasilkan ketamin dan juga happy water ya. Yang saat ini ketamin dan happy water juga merupakan narkotika yang banyak dipergunakan di Indonesia. Halaman selanjutnya. Nah, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, tahun 2023 sampai dengan 2024 kita sudah berhasil mendeteksi ada beberapa lab narkotika ya, 9 clandestine lab seizure 2023 sampai dengan 2024. Yang pertama kita dapat waktu itu adalah lokasinya di Jakarta, di Cengkareng, nggak jauh dari Bandara Cengkareng. Kemudian setelah itu kami dapatkan lagi di Semarang. Kemudian nggak lama setelah itu kami juga dapat di Bali. Di Bali ada 2 waktu itu. Kemudian juga di Medan gitu. Jadi inilah clandestine lab, mereka memproduksi narkotika dari bahan-bahan yang kimia yang bukan prekursor. Jadi memang ini PR besar buat teman-teman sekalian di lapangan. Jadi agar berhati-hati apabila melihat ada pemberitahuan barang-barang kimia ya. Biasanya mereka tidak pernah memberitahukan sebagai barang kimia tersebut. Mereka sering memberitahukan sebagai barang lain, misalkan pigmen gitu kan, pigmen warna putih, ataupun misalnya tepung gitu kan, tepung terigu. Tapi sesungguhnya itu adalah barang-barang kimia lain yang bisa diproduksi menjadi narkotika. Jadi kalau mengharapkan melihat benzyl metil keton misalkan seperti itu, mungkin tidak akan ada itu, karena mereka sudah tahu bahwa kita sudah mengawasi barang tersebut sehingga mereka merubah namanya. Tinggal insting kita aja yang bagus. Apabila ada barang-barang kimia, pokoknya intinya barang-barang kimia serbuk gitu ya, barang-barang kimia berbentuk cairan, hati-hati, dalami dengan baik, lakukan tes dengan baik, dan juga manfaatkan laboratorium BLBC yang sudah ada di berbagai pelabuhan besar ya. Manfaatkan mereka dengan baik sehingga dengan bantuan mereka kita bisa yakin bahwa oh ternyata itu adalah prekursor, oh itu adalah ternyata benzyl metil keton ataupun barang lain yang bisa dipakai untuk membuat narkotika. Nah, di sini juga tentunya mengharuskan rekan-rekan sekalian, analis utamanya di pelabuhan-pelabuhan besar, agar paham gitu, barang-barang apa saja yang bisa menjadi barang-barang kimia yang tidak diawasi yang bisa menjadi prekursor, yang bisa menjadi narkotika. Ini nanti coba bisa lakukan komunikasi dengan teman-teman di Direktorat Interdiksi Narkotika, karena cukup banyak barang-barang yang bisa secara kimia dirubah menjadi narkotika. Lanjut, kita lihat ini adalah clandestine lab yang ada di Canggu, di Bali. Nah, ini adalah laboratorium yang memproduksi mefedron ya, dan hidrofonik marijuana atau ganja hidrofonik. Tempatnya ini di dalam villa, di bawah, di lantai apa namanya, underground ya, sehingga dari luar ini tidak kelihatan. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian bisa bayangkan itu yang namanya ganja itu bisa ditanam di ruangan tanpa ada cahaya matahari gitu. Mereka membuat cahaya matahari buatan lah, kira-kira seperti itu. Di sini bahan-bahan yang mereka pergunakan. Kita lihat di sini ada metilamin, ya, isooktan, kemudian ada solvent seperti aseton, diklorometan, benzen, kemudian juga reagennya sodium hidroksida, magnesium sulfat, hidroklorik acid. Nah, apabila menemukan barang-barang ini ya, sulfuric acid, metilamin, isopropil alkohol, isooktan di dalam importasi yang bukan dimasukkan oleh industri kimia atau pedagang besar kimia atau farmasi yang legal, maka ini patut dicurigai dimasukkan oleh mafia yang akan membuat narkotika ya. Lanjutnya, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, ini adalah online marketplace ya. Kalau kita buka di dalam internet, ini ada ekemi.com ya. Di sini sangat mudah sekali di dunia ini untuk mendapatkan barang-barang tersebut ya. Metilamin hidroklorida 99,9% powder, artinya itu adalah yang kemurnian yang sangat tinggi, itu dijual dengan begitu saja di internet di luar negeri, di Cina deh. Kemudian juga bromopenilaminopiperidin. Ini adalah bahan-bahan yang tadi saya sampaikan merupakan prekursor dan bahan kimia yang bisa dibuat menjadi narkotika. Nah, ini hati-hati karena ternyata di luar sedemikian mudahnya online market dan mereka juga tidak melakukan pengecekan siapa yang beli kelihatannya, ataupun juga bisa ditipu-tipu barangkali ya kalau memang mereka bisa menjual kepada siapa saja. Dan apabila ada orang Indonesia yang memasukkan barang-barang ini yang belanja di online market seperti ini, maka patut diduga mereka adalah berasal dari jaringan yang akan membuat clandestine laboratory di Indonesia. Jadi kita harus hati-hati. Yang pertama adalah tadi melakukan pengawasan terhadap narkotika yang masuk melalui pelabuhan, baik melalui barang kiriman, melalui PIB, PIBK, ataupun juga titipan kilat ya. Kita harus hati-hati, titipan biasa kita harus hati-hati, dan juga kita harus mata kita mulai melihat kepada terhadap online marketplace. Online marketplace ini luar biasa. Tim crawling harus hati-hati, harus bisa juga melihat dengan baik fenomena bahwa barang-barang tersebut sekarang banyak diperdagangkan secara online dan dikirim secara online ya. Lanjut, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, ini adalah strategi yang kita siapkan di dalam menghadapi clandestine laboratory. Yang pertama adalah tentunya kita harus mengedepankan kolaborasi dan information sharing ya dengan international organization dan custom agency. Jadi kita di Direktorat Jenderal Bea dan Cukai bisa melalui Direktorat Kerjasama Internasional Kepabedaan dan Cukai, atau untuk narkotika bisa juga secara langsung apabila memang biasanya sudah kita mempunyai komunikasi sebelumnya, lakukan komunikasi dengan mereka dengan baik. Dan utamanya untuk kita harus bisa mengembangkan kolaborasi dengan Malaysian Custom ya utamanya, kemudian juga Thailand Custom ini yang belum. Thailand Custom harus segera digarap juga karena narkotika banyak kelewat melalui mereka, kemudian juga Vietnam Custom karena sebagian narkotika juga melalui wilayah mereka, kemudian juga Filipina Custom. Jadi negara-negara custom yang terdekat dengan kita harus segera membuat kolaborasi dengan mereka sehingga bisa ada information sharing ya. Selama ini information sharing sangat-sangat baik sudah kita lakukan dengan Cina, dengan Hong Kong, dengan Malaysia. Tinggal Thailand, kemudian Filipina yang masih kurangnya. Dengan Singapura sudah cukup bagus, tetapi memang sedikit atau relatif tidak ada yang masuk melalui Singapura ya. Singapura hanya negara transit saja gitu. Kemudian Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, kita juga harus mempromot kolaborasi dan information sharing dengan Badan Narkotika Nasional ya, Indonesia Narcotic National Board, dan juga the National Police ya. Kemudian juga kita juga harus melakukan koordinasi intelijen, operasi intelijen ya, untuk target-target trafficking dan distribusi yang barang-barang yang synthetic drug. Kemudian juga custom laboratory juga tadi saya sampaikan juga sudah harus dimanfaatkan dengan baik dan kerjasama dengan mereka, dan sudah ada di pelabuhan-pelabuhan utama. Kemudian juga yang tidak kalah pentingnya adalah harus melakukan handling protokol dan juga edukasi tentang material yang baik untuk memprotek teman-teman custom officer dan juga mengharuskan kita juga mampu bela diri dan penggunaan senjata misalkan untuk teman-teman yang ada di lapangan. Lanjut ke halaman selanjutnya. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, ya ini lanjut aja. Kita lanjut, kita skip saja. Ini adalah strategic plan ya. Ini tadi saya sampaikan, jadi mulai kita memperkuat teknologi informasi ya dengan CNCCT, CNTC, kemudian juga ada drug signature laboratory, kemudian juga melakukan joint analysis dan targeting bersama polisi dan juga BNN. Kemudian juga kita mengoptimalisasikan unit K9 dan melakukan operasi bersinar, kemudian juga operasi Purnama dan juga joint task force dengan Malaysia. Ini adalah yang kita lakukan secara rutin pada saat ini. Lanjut, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, ke halaman selanjutnya. Dari sini lanjut aja, Mas. Kita lihat hasil yang dalam 3 tahun terakhir ini. Tahun 2022 ada 6 ton narkotika yang sudah kita dapatkan. Tahun 2023 sekitar 6 ton juga mendekati. Dan tahun 2024 sampai dengan hari ini sudah cukup banyak, yaitu sekitar ini sebetulnya sudah lebih dari 5,1 ton gitu. Jadi cukup besar ya sampai dengan hari ini mungkin sampai bulan yang lalu ya. Sudah 5,3 ton kalau tidak salah sampai dengan bulan ini. Lanjut Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, dan ini adalah modusnya ya. Modusnya land transportasi, kemudian juga sea transportasi, kemudian terbanyak adalah melalui mail ya, dan juga air transport ya. Kalau dari sisi kasus ya ini, tapi kalau dari sisi jumlah yang terbesar adalah melalui laut ya. Lanjut lagi. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, jadi pada intinya adalah seperti itu. Tentunya pada kesempatan ini sekali lagi kami harapkan agar kiranya rekan-rekan semua, seluruh jajaran narkotika dan seluruh pegawai jajaran Direktorat Jenderal Bea dan Cukai agar kiranya bisa mengambil manfaat dari apa yang sudah tadi saya sampaikan, bisa memanfaatkan teknologi yang ada, kemudian juga memahami perubahan tren dan juga bekerja sama dengan baik internal maupun dengan kepolisian setempat di levelnya masing-masing dan juga dengan BNN di level masing-masing, sehingga usaha kita di dalam menghambat masuknya narkotika bisa semakin baik lagi dengan melakukan kolaborasi. Penjahat melakukan kolaborasi, kita melakukan kolaborasi, dan tentunya apabila kita bisa melakukan kolaborasi dengan baik, maka kita bisa melindungi masyarakat Indonesia dari masuknya narkotika dan melindungi anak cucu kita dan juga keluarga-keluarga kita dari narkotika. So thank you very much for the time, and I'm so sorry that my presentation is in Indonesian language in order to make Indonesian official understood about that. But I believe that many of you also from WCO and also other resource person could learn a lot directly from the slide that it's originally in English. So thank you very much, and back to the master ceremony. Thank you very much and good day.
Terima kasih Bapak. Thank you very much Mr. Syarif Hidayat for your captivating presentation. Let me kindly read out some key points that Mr. Syarif Hidayat outlined. First, the DGCA is facing some significant challenges in combating illegal drug trafficking in Indonesia. First, narcotic is now used as proxy war weapons to weaken a nation by destroying human resources. Second, Indonesia is located on a strategic location and has large population, so Indonesia is now a potential target for illegal drug marketing. Third, the emergence of new types of synthetic drugs. Fourth, the traffickers are now increasingly use online marketing as a new strategy. The DGCE has developed and implemented some strategies. One, regional and global collaboration in which the DGCE can implement information sharing, and joint operation with partner organizations. Thank you very much, Mr. Sari. Please stay connected on this platform. We will still need your contribution at the discussion session later on. Dear audiences, distinguished speakers, we will now proceed to the second part of our webinar. Did you know that based on the Human ODC, there are over 290 million illegal drug users around the world, and the number increased by over 20% in the last decade. Law enforcement agencies have taken serious measures to combat illegal drugs trafficking. The WCO initiated Drugs and Precursors Program that aims to assist Customs Administration in grappling with illegal drug trafficking. In the next 30 minutes, the second part of our webinar, we will explore the WCO Drugs and Precursors Program. Our speaker will be the Director of Facilitation and Compliance, the WCO, Mr. Pranab Kumar Das. Let me introduce him briefly to you. Mr. Pranab Kumar Das is currently the Director of Facilitation and Compliance of the WCO. He is responsible for fostering collaborations among Customs Administration, capacity building, and overseeing the implementation of the WCO initiatives in streamlining trading procedures. Prior to joining the WCO, he was the chairman of the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs of India. This role, he contributed significantly in reducing dwelling time, reducing import clearance costs for traders, and promoting customs reforms in India. As I mentioned earlier, Mr. Pranab is one among the most experienced in this topic. Therefore, let's welcome with a big round of applause the Director of Facilitation and Compliance of the WCO, Mr. Pranab Kumar Das. Namaste, Mr. Pranab. The screen is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am very honored today to participate in the second seminar series of the Narcotics Law Enforcement Knowledge Sharing of Aceh Customs. The theme of today's seminar, Global Trends in Narcotics Trafficking, Emerging Challenges and Sharing Strategic Responses, is incredibly timely and relevant. As a representative of the WCO, I have the privilege of leading initiatives focused on combating narcotics trafficking. In my talk today, I will be sharing insights into various tools and instruments developed by the WCO to support customs administrations in tackling these challenges. I hope to provide you with valuable strategies and practices that can be applied in our ongoing fight against narcotics trafficking. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Previous slide. One slide before. Yes. Today, I will be covering several key areas that are crucial to understanding the role of WCO in the fight against narcotics trafficking. A brief introduction to WCO, having grown from its 17 founding members in 1952 to 186 members today. We work to support customs administrations globally. Next, I will discuss the main challenges we face in combating narcotics trafficking. I will then delve into the WCO Drugs and Precursors Program. These are designed to equip customs administrations with the necessary resources and strategies to detect and intercept illicit drugs and their precursors. Finally, I will share thoughts on how we can strengthen our global efforts, enhance international cooperation, and adapt to emerging challenges in the narcotics control. Next slide, please. In 2024, the World Customs Organization celebrated its 72 years through the international standards, cooperation and capacity building. The WCO continues to enhance trade facilitation, revenue collection, and the protection of society, and provides leadership, guidance, and support to customs administrations. The development and refinement of international standards through joint projects and working groups are to ensure that its members remain adaptable to evolving global challenges. Cooperation is central to the WCO's missions, fostering collaboration between customs administrations, the private sector, and other stakeholders. Activities, joint operations, and international conferences strengthen exchange of information, enhance border security, and ensure smoother trade flows, all of which contribute directly to WCO's overarching goals. WCO values engaging with the private sector for insights and contributions. WCO Private Sector Consultative Group, PSCG as it is known, plays a vital role in sensitizing civil society about the harmful effects of narcotics drugs, psychotropic substances, new psychotic substances as well, and other synthetic drugs, addressing the demand side of the problem. We also collaborate with private sector, NGOs, academics in various WCO operations and global advocacy programs through conferences. We work to educate the general public and foster a unified fight against smuggling, counterfeiting, and drug trafficking. The WCO offers capacity building activities and technical assistance initiatives to help members implement various standards and improve operational efficiency. Through awareness raising programs and targeted trainings, customs administrations are better equipped to handle the modern challenges and to modernize their customs administrations. Thus, by advancing international standards, encouraging cooperation with all the stakeholders, and through capacity building, all the WCO activities actively support and further its missions and vision. Next slide, please. Now, the customs administrations have various challenges they are facing in combating global illicit drug trade. These challenges include proliferation of new synthetic drugs, evolving tactics of traffickers, complex global supply chains, cross-border coordination, resource constraints. So I will go through each of these areas a little. The rapid rise of synthetic drugs, especially fentanyl, outpaces regulation and detection efforts. My previous speaker had talked about methamphetamine and various other synthetic drugs as well. Traffickers alter chemical compositions to bypass controls, requiring constant updates in training and detection technology. Sometimes they also started having the illicit and illegal laboratories and bringing different precursor chemicals and other components to manufacture drugs locally and also traffic these dangerous drugs. Now, what is the evolving tactics of traffickers? Traffickers adapt quickly using advanced concealment techniques and exploiting digital platforms, as the previous speaker also informed, making it difficult to customs to stay ahead. These demands are more innovative, proactive enforcement methods are required to tackle these modern procedures and the modern techniques adopted. Now, the global supply chain is also becoming more and more complex. The increasing complexity in this global supply chain, rapid growth of e-commerce, particularly small consignment, though it is of very large value, allow traffickers to hide drugs within the legitimate shipments, and it is very difficult to physically examine all millions of small consignments in e-commerce the environment. So that sheer volume of small and frequent packages strains customs inspection capacities. Now, this requires cross-border coordination, but the differences in enforcement, legal frameworks, etc., create literally gaps. There are also gaps in digital methods of adaptation. So that helps traffickers exploit these vulnerabilities. Therefore, the stronger international partnership and standardized procedures are very much essential for a unified response to this global threat. Now, resource constraint. Many of the administrations face resource constraint, both financial and human, especially the empowered manpower. So we have the technology divide, we have the technology constraints, which hinders their ability to address drug trafficking effectively while managing legitimate trade in a very fundamentally facilitating manner. So addressing these challenges requires enhanced international cooperation and capacity building efforts, which WTO drug program actively supports through its initiatives. Next slide, please. Now, I'll talk a little about various drug programs of WTO. It has made significant strides in supporting global collaboration and fostering capacity building efforts among members to combat drug trafficking. The very important project we have, namely Colibri project, focuses on the surveillance and control of the small aircraft, particularly in the general aviation areas, in three different continents, the Latin America and South America and Africa, as well as Caribbean. The synthetic drug detection project is a new one which has been taken up recently by WTO. It is dedicated to disrupting the illegal trafficking of synthetic drugs, addressing the new emerging global threat. The container control program is another important initiative the WTO has been embarking with partnership from UNODC. This is the 20th year of its being launched in 2004. And now it is being rebranded as the Passenger and Container Control Program, or PCCP. UNODC is also having a new division called Passenger Control and Border Trafficking, PCBT. And it is designed to create a more comprehensive and unified approach to monitoring both passengers and cargo across borders. Next is we have a dog detection program, or the canine detection program that is quite well known world over. It aims at enhancing members' capacity to use detector dogs in the fulfillment of their enforcement missions and to share best practices at global and regional level. We have different canine centers. They are also accredited by WTO. They are known as Regional Dog Training Centers, or DTCs. So these efforts WTO has embarked, and through these efforts, the WTO drugs program contributes to enhance the global response to drug trafficking, ensuring a multidimensional approach to tackling this issue. Next slide, please. I'll talk a little bit about the Colibri project and the key achievements thereunder. The Colibri project launched in 2019 with 7.3 million euro funding from EU. Is a joint effort between WTO and the European Union to strengthen the monitoring and control of general aviation, as I informed, a sector often used for illicit trafficking activities due to flexibility and speed. And the project combats transnational crime and illicit trafficking through enhanced cross-border law enforcement cooperation, as I mentioned, in the three continents. Members' benefits include improved intelligence sharing, risk analysis, and capacity building by the targeted training and digital tools like Colibri mobile app and Geoportal, which facilitate information exchange. Members also gain access to resources such as technical handbook and e-learning courses, improving their enforcement capabilities and ensuring long-term sustainability. The project now supports 19 countries, expanding expertise and creating a larger network of trainers, law enforcement experts, and various think tanks to foster stronger operational impact and security. Next slide, please. Now, there are three different components of the synthetic drug detection project. The synthetic drugs are becoming a major threat in the illicit drug markets due to the potency and flexibility of production, and which makes the detection more challenging, particularly using various precursor chemicals which have dual use. Some of them are also illicit use, and they are imported and sometimes manufactured licitly, but diverted for illegal manufacture of the synthetic drugs. Recognizing this, the WTO, with the support from United States Department of State's Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs, or INL as is well known, launched the Synthetic Drugs Detection Project, STDP, in October 2023. STDP aims to strengthen capacity building and global cooperation among law enforcement agencies and relevant stakeholders to combat synthetic drug trafficking. It focuses on two high risk areas: the general aviation, targeting drug trafficking via small aircraft in the general aviation area that even the Colibri is also targeting. So the SGTP supports to that extent the general Colibri project in the other narcotics drugs detection areas in Central America and the Caribbean. And the mail channel working with WTO and INCB to curb the drug smuggling through the mail system, especially in Asia and Pacific. So Indonesia is one of the important country in this regard. Additionally, the project integrates canine initiatives to enhance detection efforts using highly trained dogs in the different dog training centers I just mentioned to effectively screen goods and travelers in both general aviation and mail channels. Next slide, please. Now, what are the key activities to achieve this objective? As you see in the view foil, we have adapted right from the beginning the scoping missions. Then we have expert meetings with the help of regional workshops and training and intelligence interdiction units. And with the support of IT tools, we achieve these objectives. So how do you start the awareness raising is one important area, educating relevant stakeholders in the growing threat of synthetic drugs through scoping missions and expert meetings. And next, we also carry out various capacity building activities, enhancing the skills and tools available to law enforcement officials for better detection and interdiction. We carry out coordinated enforcement operations, implementing regional and inter-regional operations, and also intercepting synthetic drug trafficking through the help and coordination with various stakeholders, including some of the international organizations like Interpol and various other INCB, UPU, and various other relevant stakeholders. And we have the technological support which the project relies on to boost enforcement capabilities. I just mentioned briefly about Geoportal. Geoportal is a tool which provides mapping and geolocalization to monitor general aviation. Then we have the WCO CENCOM. It provides a closed user group and ensures secure real-time exchange of information and sharing of real-time intelligence for planning and risk analysis. Next slide, please. I would like to thank my sincere thanks to Mr. Ascolani, Director General of Customs and Excise of Indonesia, for graciously hosting the regional workshop on drugs controls in the mail channel from 2nd to 6th September, which is a part of the STDP. The objective of this workshop was to enhance knowledge and capabilities of synthetic drugs control within the mail channel by facilitating the sharing of best practices and experiences alongside training on the safe handling of the dangerous substances, precursor chemicals, and also understanding the various routing and modus operandi that traffickers normally indulge in. I am pleased to report that the workshop was highly successful, with active participation and valuable insights shared and gained, greatly benefiting the region's collective efforts in combating synthetic drug trafficking. Next slide, please. Now, I talk a little about the container control program. As the view foil indicates, the different regions that the container 73 countries in different regions of WCO, where this very important initiative of WCO Container Control Program, which is presently operational. It was collaborated between WCO and UNODC, as I mentioned, launched in 2004. And this year we're celebrating the 20th anniversary, and it will be celebrated by UNODC and WCO together. So it was designed to enhance container control at high-risk locations such as seaports and airports, where large volume of cross-border trade normally are routed through. So this program focuses on preventing the trafficking of illicit goods like drugs and weapons, while also promoting legitimate trade and protecting national revenue through the collection of customs duty. In 2023, CCP underwent a strategic rebranding and is now known as Passenger and Cargo Control Program, as I mentioned. This change reflects an expanded focus to include both the passengers and cargo, ensuring a comprehensive approach to addressing the modern day challenges in border security, both in passenger side as well as on the cargo side. The program has established a Port Control Unit, or PCU, and Air Cargo Unit, or ACCU, in over 73 countries, enhancing security at key entry points such as seaports, airports, land borders, by focusing high traffic areas with heightened risk of organized crime and terrorism. The CCP or PCCP as in future it will be as ensures secure trade channels and while tackling smuggling and trafficking. Next slide, please. Now, the container control program focuses on the various strategies that you can see in the view foil. We have the comprehensive 36-month training program aimed at progressively building the skills of customs and law enforcement officials delivered in phases. This training ensures the participants gradually master the expertise required for effectively tackling and managing the high-risk cargo. This approach allows this approach allows for continuous learning, adapting to emerging threats in border security. Throughout the 36 months, the officials receive ongoing mentorship and support, helping them to refine their risk assessment capabilities and operational efficiency. Next slide, please.
Mr. Sarif, mana pertanyaan yang gilang risknya?
We have specialized training to effectively control cargo at borders. Specialized units require advanced training tailored to their needs, ensuring identification and interception of illicit goods. Risk management is another important area. By applying targeted risk management, using risk indicators and focusing resources on high-risk shipments, border control becomes more efficient and precise. Advanced technology is another area, like using cutting-edge inspection tools and equipment. It enables through and thorough and accurate searches of the cargo. Secure communication, I talked about CENTCOM, which or the container com enables secure real-time information sharing and collaboration between customs and various law enforcement agencies and international organizations. The clearance systems becomes more efficient. It helps identifying the suspicious shipments while allowing the illicit cargo to smoothly, and investigation and evidence, providing strong investigation support and ensuring proper evidence collection would be required for handling and during prosecution. We also use the cargo targeting system. It allows authorities to prioritize inspections based on risk indicators, balancing border security and trade facilitation. Next slide, please. And now I'll speak a little about the performance and the key results. Since the launch in 2004, we had seizure of over more than 619 kgs of cocaine, 14 tons of heroin, over 74 tons of cannabis, and 2.8 tons of precursors, and identification of other contrabands, including strategic and dual-use goods, environmental crime items, particularly the wildlife and other precious timbers and various other forest products, various citrus items and counterfeit products as well. Next slide, please. The WCO detector dog program is central to the global efforts in combating trafficking of illicit substances. The program raises awareness about the limitless potential of detector dogs. They are silent. They are the best partner that one can have. And it helps customs operations in detecting drugs and contrabands. A key pillar of the program is facilitating knowledge sharing exchange through the WCO regional dog detection centers at RDTCs, as I mentioned, which serves as hubs for training and technical expertise. The program also hosts a global canine forum. The last global canine forum conference was held in Hong Kong, where canine experts gathered to discuss best practices, training methods, trend threats and technology developments. Additionally, WCO provides technical assistance to member countries through the assessment missions and trainings, while integrating the canine component into the synthetic drug detection projects to enhance global capabilities in fighting synthetic drug trafficking. Next slide, please. Now, what is the way forward? To quote from the WCO illicit trade report of 2023, illicit trade can be deterred through a coordinated, multifaceted approach on the collective knowledge and experience developed by the customs authorities and the wider community, as well as our various other stakeholders and civil society. Now, what are the different way we can proceed? One is strengthening global partnership. We must continue to strengthen our global partnership and foster cooperation between customs, law enforcement agencies, and international organizations. This collaboration is vital to combating the complex and multimodal transport methods used in drug trafficking. Expanding use of innovative tools, expanding use of WCO Geoportal and CENCOM will track and analyze emerging trends. This data-driven approach will improve risk assessment and focus on high-risk routes, making the enforcement strategies more precise and effective. Capacity building is another area where ongoing investment and capacity building through customized training and focused training is very much essential by empowering customs and law enforcement agencies to tackle challenges posed by the synthetic drugs, e-commerce, and diverse transport channels. We ensure they stay ahead of the criminal strategies. Sharing best practices and creating a compendium of best practices which can be updated from time to time would be the next kind of best way forward, which will help refine the enforcement strategies. These insights provide valuable lessons to improve the overall effectiveness of drug enforcement efforts. Now, I talked about the supply side of the problem. Now, let me also focus on the demand side. So, greater encouragement and sensitization of the civil society is very much essential to reducing the demand side of the narcotics drugs problem. So we must therefore empower and synergize the resources and efforts of all stakeholders, committing to a united fight against this global menace to build a safer and healthier society. I know together we can do this, and we must stop this menace in a unified fight. Next slide, please. I wish the seminar great success in fostering meaningful discussions and collaborations. And thank you once again, Mr. Escolani, for the invitation. And I look forward to seeing the outcomes of your and our combined continuous efforts to combat drug trafficking globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pranab. I wrote some noteworthy keynotes from the presentation of Mr. Pranab. First, Mr. Pranab outlined some significant challenges facing law enforcement agencies around the world in combating illegal drug trafficking. First, the emergence of new synthetic drugs. Second, traffickers continuously change their tactics in producing and marketing illegal drugs. Third, traffickers exploit the global supply chains and the technological advances. Fourth, law enforcement agencies are also faced with internal challenges in the form of constraints in resources, as well as, for example, human resource and equipments. Therefore, the WCO initiated Drugs and Precursors Program that aims to assist customs administration around the world. The program mainly consists of 4 components: Colibri Project, Synthetic Drug Detection Project, Container Control Program, and Dog Detection Program. Dhanyavad, thank you very much, Mr. Pranab, for your enlightening presentation. Please stay connected with us. We will still need your contribution at the discussion session of the fourth part of our webinar today. Distinguished speakers, dear audiences, we will now proceed to the third part, as well as the final presentation of our webinar today. Did you know that Southeast Asia, our very region, is one of the main hubs for the global illegal drug production and distribution? The UNODC reports that tons of methamphetamines were produced in Southeast Asia and East Asia every year, and a record of over 1 billion tablets of methamphetamines were seized in the region in 2021. What are the most recent trends in global narcotics trafficking? What challenges do we need to be aware of? Dear audiences, in the next 30 minutes, the third part, as well as the final presentation of our webinar today, the UNODC scientific drug analyst, Ms. Kavin Fade Supapong Tafasakul, will uncover valuable insights on this topic. Let me say a few words about her. Ms. Kavin Fade Supapong Tafasakul is currently the UNODC scientific drug analyst for East and Southeast Asia region. She works on drug-related issues that includes synthetic drug analyzing and the development of early warning system. Prior to joining the UNODC, she served at the Ministry of Justice, Thailand. She worked on narcotic-related issues that includes prevention, suppression, and correction. Dear audiences, without further ado, let's welcome with great enthusiasm the UNODC scientific drug analyst, Ms. Kavin Fade Supapong Tafasakul. Sawadee krap, Ms. Fade, the platform is yours.
Sawadee ka. Thank you very much for the very detailed introduction. My name is very long. As you can see, you can just call me D. And thank you very much for allowing me to participate in this very important meeting at the NEXUS Second International Seminar Series. For my presentation, I will be speaking mostly about the region, the global and particularly the regional trends in narcotics trafficking in East and Southeast Asia, particularly on synthetic drugs, which are the main concern for most countries in the region. Next slide, please. In terms of, just to give some introduction, in terms of the global methamphetamine market, if we look at the data, the largest methamphetamine seizures are actually reported from East and Southeast Asia. So from this region, worldwide, we seize the most amount of methamphetamine, which is followed by North America. However, we also see that there are also increasing in other markets as well, such as in Oceania and also in Europe. Next slide, please. Now, for East and Southeast Asia in particular, what we have been seeing over the past decade pretty much has been a continuous increase in the amount of methamphetamine that has been seized in the region. In 2023, based on data from East and Southeast Asia, over 190 tons, about 190 tons of methamphetamine was seized. This includes all forms of methamphetamine, so methamphetamine tablets, crystal methamphetamine, powder methamphetamine, and also liquid methamphetamine. And as you can see, 90% of this was seized in Southeast Asia. The main reason for this is around 2015, the production of methamphetamine shifted from China towards Shan State Myanmar in Southeast Asia, having significant impact on other countries in Southeast Asia. The moderator just now mentioned that in 2021, a record over 1 billion methamphetamine tablets was seized. In 2023, record amounts of both crystal methamphetamine and tablet methamphetamine were seized, so even higher than the amounts that were seized in 2021. And of the total amount of methamphetamine, nearly 3/4 was seized in Laos, PDR, in Myanmar, and Thailand. So the Golden Triangle region, which is really susceptible to the production of, to the trafficking of methamphetamine, since production takes place predominantly in Shan State, Myanmar. We have some preliminary information for 2024. As of March of this year, already 46.7 tons of methamphetamine has been seized. So as you can see, this year as well, there is a high likelihood that there will still be a very high amount of methamphetamine seized in the region. Next slide, please. For our office, we are very fortunate in that we have very close cooperation with national drug authorities and law enforcement authorities in the region. So we're able to produce annually a report on the regional synthetic drug situation. Here, for your information, we also have some information on how much methamphetamine seizures have changed from year to year. And as you can see, in 2023, what we have seen is an increase in the amount of methamphetamine seized in several countries and territories in East and Southeast Asia, including in Myanmar, in Thailand, in Cambodia, in Malaysia, Vietnam, and also China, among other countries. In Indonesia, the amount of methamphetamine seized dropped slightly last year compared to 2022, but it's still a very high amount at over 8 tons of methamphetamine that was seized in Indonesia. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, the illicit methamphetamine manufacture that takes place in East and Southeast Asia predominantly takes place in Shan State, Myanmar. There we have, but one of the significant issues of this production is that this production that is taking place in Myanmar is taking place in areas that are not accessible by authorities. Here, there were only several seizures in 2023 of clandestine labs in southern Shan State, which is accessible by authorities, and these were very small tableting operations, as you can see in the photos here. And as you can see, the scale of the labs does not reflect the high amounts of methamphetamine that are seized in the region. As I mentioned, this is because a lot of production takes place in the special regions of Myanmar where authorities cannot access. In 2023, however, there were also some small labs identified in Indonesia and Malaysia, showing that there's still a very high demand for this drug in the region. Next slide, please. Here I have I'm sorry, it's a bit hard to, it's a bit of a messy map, but here we have this is the methamphetamine trafficking routes for East and Southeast Asia. As you can see, the blue dots are the production areas that we have identified. There have been small production sites, as I mentioned, in Indonesia and Malaysia, also some in Taiwan province of China, very small ones in the Philippines, some in China as well, but predominantly it takes place in Myanmar. And as you can see, the different routes that organized crime take to traffic it, whether it's through land routes or maritime routes, from Shan State, Myanmar to, for example, to Thailand, further on to Malaysia, to Indonesia, to other markets in Oceania, such as Australia, New Zealand, and also towards East Asia as well. Next slide, please. Now, what we have observed in the past few years since COVID is the increased scale of methamphetamine trafficking. We've been seeing larger shipments of drugs per shipment that have been trafficked in the region. During 2021, 2022, what we saw were increasing amounts of over 1 ton of methamphetamine that were seized per shipment coming through East and Southeast Asia, particularly through the Golden Triangle countries. And in this year, in May 2024 of this year, we saw the largest single seizure of crystal methamphetamine, which was 5 tons of crystal methamphetamine that was seized in Mandalay, Myanmar, that was destined to Yangon for subsequent maritime trafficking through the Malacca Strait. We've also seen this development with regard to methamphetamine tablets as well. Previously, in the past, mostly when we see reporting of methamphetamine tablet seizures in the region, we would usually see them in the several 100,000s. But for this map, if you can see it, I think I will, if the organizers would like to share this presentation with you all, I would also be very happy for the organizers to share this so you can see it clearer afterwards. But in the past few months since April, these are the amount of seizures of crystal methamphetamine that were over 1 ton and methamphetamine tablets that were over 10 million tablets. So as you can see, the scale of methamphetamine trafficking for both crystal meth and methamphetamine tablets has been increasing in the region in the past years and especially in the past year as well. Next slide, please. What we have also seen especially since 2022, what we have observed is the increase in maritime trafficking. From information that we have for Myanmar, for seizures in Myanmar, what we notice is usually, as I mentioned, the Shan State, the seizures of methamphetamine used to be predominantly seized in Shan State, Myanmar, where the drugs are produced. But in recent years, we have been seeing more and more seizures made in Mandalay, which is the transit region in Myanmar, and also the southern coastal provinces of Myanmar. More and more methamphetamine has been seized in those regions. And we have also been seeing, because in addition to that, the actual seizures of methamphetamine taking place on maritime routes. For example, in late October of last year, we saw 2.6 tons of crystal methamphetamine seized in Myanmar, Gatang, Myanmar, which is the very southern point of Myanmar, which was destined to Malaysia. We also saw seizures in Shan and Yangon of Myanmar of over 2 tons of crystal methamphetamine that was destined to neighboring countries. And I think you're probably all aware of this case in July of this year, where 106 kilograms of crystal meth was seized in Indonesia that was destined to Australia, also through maritime routes. So as you can see, the Andaman Sea side and the Malacca Strait is still very prone to maritime trafficking, and has also been seeing increased amounts of methamphetamine trafficking in the past few years. Next slide, please. And here, these are routes of maritime trafficking that we have spoken to Indonesian authorities about, including the National Narcotics Board as well. And they have been identifying these routes as the main maritime trafficking routes that are used to transport methamphetamine into Indonesia for further trafficking within the country and also abroad. You can see from East and Southeast Asia, from the Golden Triangle region, but also amounts that are coming from West Asia and also Africa. Next slide, please. One of the developments that we have seen in the past year especially is that I talked a lot about just now about the Andaman Sea side. But in the past year, we have been seeing an increased amount of trafficking through the Gulf of Thailand side, which we had not seen in previous years. And one of these is, I have several cases here for information. In December of last year, a seizure of 1 ton of crystal meth and 1.2 tons of ketamine was seized in Chicheng, South Thailand, which is on the Gulf of Thailand side. Also near Cambodia, seizures of large amounts of crystal meth and also ketamine, which was trafficked from Lao PDR into Cambodia and for further maritime trafficking to Taiwan province of China. Earlier this year, there were also some cases where tea bags containing crystal methamphetamine, as you can see in the photo here, were seized on the shores of several provinces, coastal provinces in Thailand on the Gulf of Thailand side, amounting to over 400 kilograms of crystal meth. For this packaging, if you look at this packaging, the methamphetamine that is produced in Shan State, Myanmar is usually packaged in these distinct tea bags, usually guan in wang, the gold one, the green one. This packaging of gold and silver fish on the tea bag was identified as new packaging that was found in 2023. And in 2024, we saw this here in the cases of the washed up methamphetamine. Next slide, please. So as you can see, especially in 2023, what we have been seeing is organized crime have been making use of the connectivity between land-based corridors and also maritime-based corridors to traffic the drugs out of the production regions to other destination countries. Whether it's from the production site through Myanmar, through the maritime trafficking routes, but also through other countries in the Mekong region for further trafficking to other Southeast Asian nations as well. Next slide, please. Now, although methamphetamine from Shan State, Myanmar is still the predominant source of methamphetamine in East and Southeast Asia, we have also been seeing increasing amounts of methamphetamine trafficked from other regions as well. For example, in April of this year, we saw the Philippines made a seizure of 1.4 tons of crystal meth, which was believed to be originated from West Asia. And the difference, if you can see it from the packaging, as you also might be aware, while the methamphetamine that's produced in the Golden Triangle area is in tea bags predominantly, the methamphetamine that is produced in West Asia usually is contained in plastic Tupperware. And this is what was found in the Philippines. In terms of the amount of methamphetamine that was seized by the Philippines in 2023, you can see that Thailand remained the top country for embarkation point of methamphetamine. But we also see an increasing amount of methamphetamine that was trafficked from Mexico. And this has also been observed by other countries in the region as well. Next slide, please. For example, especially Hong Kong, China has been subject to a lot of methamphetamine trafficking from Mexico. And in October 2023 of last year, they made a record seizure of solid methamphetamine, which is 1.1 tons of crystal methamphetamine that was seized in a seaborne container, and it was declared as carrying seafood from Mexico that was seized by Hong Kong Customs in October. They've also made previous seizures of liquid methamphetamine as well, which can be converted to crystal methamphetamine, including in 2022, a record 1.8 tons of liquid methamphetamine, but also earlier this year, a smaller amount of liquid methamphetamine, but together with chemicals and equipment that could be used to crystallize the methamphetamine from liquid to crystal methamphetamine. As I mentioned, the Philippines has noted an increasing proportion of methamphetamine sourced from Mexico, but this has also been reported by Japan as well. Next slide, please. When we look at the wholesale prices, we still make all of these very, very large seizures of methamphetamine, but the supply in the market still seems to be high, as we can see from the wholesale prices of crystal methamphetamine that over the years have still continued to decrease. If you look at Cambodia, for example, from 2019 to 2023, it decreased from $8,000 US dollars per kilogram to just $6,000 US dollars per kilogram. In Malaysia, in 2019, it was around $12,000 US dollars per kilogram. And in 2023, it was only about $7,000 US dollars per kilogram. So you can see almost half of what it used to be in 2019. Similarly, in Thailand, it used to be over 10,000, a bit over 10,000 US dollars per kilogram. But in 2023, this dropped to only 4,000 US dollars per kilogram. So you can see very, very significant decreases in the price of crystal methamphetamine over the past even just few years. And we have information from law enforcement and intelligence officials at the border that at the border, this can be as low as 1,000 US dollars per kilogram, and at production sites, it can be as low as 400 US dollars per kilogram. So you can see there are mass profits that can be made from the crystal meth market as it continues to be supplied throughout the region. Next slide, please. And in terms of methamphetamine use in the region, we have some information from countries in the region based on their different drug demand indicators, whether it is through treatment, whether it is through drug users that are arrested, that in many countries in East and Southeast Asia in 2023, they saw an increase in the amount of methamphetamine use, including in Laos, in Thailand, Cambodia, Malaysia, Singapore, Brunei, Philippines, and also the Republic of Korea. Next slide, please. But to make these, for the existence of these synthetic drugs in the market, there has to be chemicals that are used to produce them. And as you may be aware, for methamphetamine, the main precursors, especially for this region, are ephedrine and pseudoephedrine, but also P2P. These are controlled internationally, so as we know that they are the main precursors for methamphetamine. However, over the past many years, there have been virtually no seizures of ephedrine, pseudoephedrine, or P2P made in East and Southeast Asian countries, especially when you look at 190 tons of methamphetamine seized. Usually the seizures made of ephedrine and pseudoephedrine are only about not even 10 kilograms. So as you can see, we're not able to seize the exact precursors. And part of this is because there has been an increase in the amount of non-controlled chemicals that are used for the production of methamphetamine. If you see on the left, these are seizures of chemicals that were made in Southeast Asia by the control status. And if you can see in 2023, virtually all of those seizures that were made were non-controlled chemicals. And this is very important because a lot of these chemicals are transported through different cargo, like sea cargo and so on. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, here we have a map of trafficking routes of chemicals in the Mekong. So you can see in the past, a lot of the chemicals that were seized in the region to be used en route or at production sites were originated from China. But we have been seeing in recent years also, in the past year particularly, increasing amounts of chemicals that are traveling from India to the region for further production. There was a case last year or the year before made in Thailand of benzyl cyanide, which is about with 25 tons of benzyl cyanide. Benzyl cyanide is a non-controlled chemical, but it can be used to produce P2P, which is one of the precursors of methamphetamine. And the seizure of this substance was made in a port in Thailand. The chemicals were transported from India to Thailand, and customs authorities at the port were able to notice that the permits were incorrect. And after they were following the trail, it was found that the chemicals were to be transferred from the port in Thailand to the western border of Thailand for further trafficking into Myanmar. So you can see it's very important to understand that in addition to the controlled chemicals, there are also emerging non-controlled chemicals that can be used to produce these synthetic drugs as well. Next slide, please. Aside from methamphetamine, what have we been seeing worldwide is also the increasing amounts of ketamine that has been seized, not only in our region, but also in Europe, in Oceania, and also in other regions. Next slide, please. In East and Southeast Asia, prior to 2022, the amounts of ketamine seized in the region were hovering at around 10 tons per year. However, in 2022, because there were large seizures made of industrial ketamine laboratories in Cambodia, a record 29 tons of methamphetamine was, 29 tons of ketamine was seized in 2022. And in 2022, 13 tons of that was seized in Cambodia alone. Now, in 2023, Cambodia seized only 1 ton of ketamine. But as you can see, the total amount of ketamine seized in East and Southeast Asia is still very, very high, at nearly 24 tons of ketamine seized in 2023. Most of this was seized in Thailand and Taiwan province of China, and also in Myanmar. But many of the countries in East and Southeast Asia all reported increasing amounts of ketamine seizures. And in 2024, as of March of this year, already 6.3 tons of ketamine has already been seized. Next slide, please. In terms of the price of ketamine, we also see some decreases in countries in the region. For Cambodia, in 2021, it was about $15,000 US dollars per kilogram. In 2022, this dropped to 9,000. This was the year where we seized all those the high supply of ketamine in Cambodia and also the industrial scale laboratories. So in 2023, after those were seized, the price increased to 12,000 US dollars per kilogram. But as you can see, it's still lower than the amounts prior. You've also seen some slight decreases in Malaysia and also in Thailand from about 9,000 US dollars per kilogram in 2021 to only about 6,000 US dollars per kilogram in 2023. Next slide, please. We have this, as an example, we have this case that was made by Vietnam authorities earlier this year, where they had information from Lao, PDR, and also from Taiwan province of China on a drug trafficking ring that was producing ketamine in the Golden Triangle and also trafficking it through Vietnam for further trafficking to Taiwan province of China. And in this case, what was unique about this case is that they used chemical masking to hide the ketamine. So the ketamine that was transported was actually NBOC ketamine, not the ketamine itself, which was intended to be converted back to ketamine at the destination. And this NBOC ketamine could not be identified using regular drug identification techniques, such as the handheld devices. But the reason they were able to make this arrest was because they had that intelligence from neighboring countries. So it is very important, as you can see, as organized crime are taking advantage of not only the different routes, but also different chemicals to have this shared intelligence and rapid sharing of intelligence between countries so that it can be better detected when these drugs are being transported throughout the region. Next slide, please. As I mentioned in the Golden Triangle, there have also been previously Shan State Myanmar was the primary area for the production of ketamine in the region. But in the past years, aside from Cambodia, we've been seeing expansion of ketamine production to other countries in the lower Mekong. And the production is not only of ketamine, but also its precursors as well, such as hydroxylamine, which has been found in the Cambodian laboratories. You can see that chemicals are very important as we try to combat this production of synthetic drugs. Next slide, please. In terms of ecstasy, I want to highlight in 2023, an equivalent of over 26.7 million tablets were seized. So if you look at the previous years, in 2023, really a record amount of ecstasy was seized in East and Southeast Asia. And this was mainly due to seizures that were made in Malaysia that accounted for 85% of the ecstasy that was seized, and followed by Indonesia that accounted for 8%, and Cambodia that accounted for 4%. And the reason for these large seizures amount of ecstasy was because Malaysia seized very large shipments of ecstasy, primarily from Europe, the Netherlands, that entered their country in 2023. At the same time, earlier this year, Vietnam also made a seizure of 179 kilograms of ecstasy that was sent by air cargo from Germany, and the ecstasy was concealed in apple juice cans. And this was a seizure that was made by Vietnam authorities earlier this year. So what we have been seeing in terms of ecstasy is that usually previously in the previous years, we would be seeing more in postal and express courier streams for ecstasy that was being trafficked from Europe into the region. But in the past year, we've been seeing more and more shipments coming from sea and air cargo in larger amounts than previously. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of new psychoactive substances, I would just like to bring these new psychoactive substances up because in Indonesia, you do find these new psychoactive substances. In East and Southeast Asia overall, in terms of as far as we have been reported, a total of 551 NPS have been reported as of the end of last year. And in 2023, 91 individual substances were reported. Most of these substances were synthetic cannabinoids, which are synthetic but have the same or similar effect as cannabis. And Indonesia in particular seizes a lot of this synthetic cannabinoids, particularly in your guerrilla tobacco. A lot of the seizures have been made when analyzed by the drug forensic laboratories contain synthetic cannabinoids. Next slide, please. But what we've also been seeing is the emergence of new classes of synthetic new psychoactive substances. For example, as you might know, fentanyl was scheduled by China several years ago. And since then, we have been seeing the decrease of fentanyl analogs that have been seized. But instead of fentanyl, we have been seeing synthetic opioids, the emergence of synthetic opioids, which are also which are also called nitazines, which also have very high potency, and some of them are more potent than fentanyl. And these nitazines have been reported in Europe, North America, South America, and also in East and Southeast Asia. It has been reported by China, by Japan, and by Malaysia as well. So very close countries. We've also been seeing, in addition to that, semi-synthetic cannabinoids that are made from CBD. And these products have been found in Japan and Singapore, and they're usually in these edible forms, and I have some pictures here for your information. Next slide, please. Now, aside from the main substances that I mentioned, methamphetamine, ketamine, ecstasy, MDMA, what we have been seeing also is the emergence of different synthetic drug products. Here I have an example of Happy Water, which was first reported in, I think, 2022 by several countries in the region. And this Happy Water is usually contain multiple combinations of substances, usually MDMA, but sometimes not MDMA as well. And they're usually sold online or at entertainment venues. And how this is used is that the Happy Water are little sachets of powder that are mixed into drinks, so alcoholic drinks or soft drinks or water, to produce, this Happy Water that people can take. And these have been found in many, many countries in the region, including in Indonesia as well. If you can see on the image on the right, the very top right is happy water that was seized in Indonesia containing MDMA and also ketamine. But if you look at the packaging, as you can see, there is no unified group that is making these happy water packages. They use there are many different packages that have been found in the region, and also the combinations are also very different. So you can see this is very dangerous for drug users who might not know what drugs are being taken, because they have, as I mentioned, many various combinations. There is no quality control for these sort of synthetic substances. Next slide. Also recently, in December of last year, we saw the emergence of this product called Party Lollipops. This has been found so far in Thailand and also in Laos. And these are lollipops that contain substances such as nimotazepam, ketamine, and tramadol in varying combinations as well. And what is interesting about this, if you see it on the bottom right, the brand is Chupa Chups. So you can see that organized crime are really using attractive packaging to appeal to users, and also hiding these synthetic substances in known brands as well, making the detection of these possibly difficult. Next slide, please. So to conclude, the general situation in East and Southeast Asia, we can see that there has been the dominance still of methamphetamine in East and Southeast Asia, while ketamine has been gaining more importance as seizures of ketamine have been increasing. And you've also been seeing the scaled up production and trafficking of synthetic drugs, as higher amounts are being trafficked per shipment at one time. At the same time, we have also been seeing the expanding drug production areas outside of Shan State, Myanmar, but also into other lower Mekong countries to produce not only the synthetic drugs, but also the precursors that are used for their production as well. We've been seeing also the increased connectivity, as I mentioned, of land-based and maritime trafficking corridors in the past years, as organized crime have been targeting maritime routes to make larger shipments of drugs in a way that is harder to detect by authorities. Aside from methamphetamine for the region, we have also been seeing methamphetamine from for other regions as well, particularly from Mexico. And as I mentioned, at the core issue of the continued expansion of the synthetic drug market in East and Southeast Asia is the continued trafficking of chemicals and the increased use of non-controlled chemicals, which are very challenging to law enforcement authorities to be able to detect, and also to understand what new chemicals are being used in the production of drugs. At the same time, we are seeing more diverse synthetic drug products. So not only the traditional ways of using these drugs, but also these different combinations, this new packaging that have been found in the region as well. So next slide, please. So that is all for my presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me through this email, or I'm sure the organizers would also be able to reach out to me as well. Thank you very much.
Presentation. Let's give a big round of applause for Ms. Kevin Pade. There are some noteworthy key points that Ms. Kevin Pade outlined. I wrote some key points. Ms. Kevin Pade outlined some significant global trends in narcotic trafficking. Methamphetamine continues to be the primary drug of concern. The seizure of methamphetamine in East and Southeast Asia region increased by over 300% in the last decade. The wholesale price of crystal methamphetamine decreased by 20 to over 50% in some East and Southeast Asia countries in the last 5 years. And in Indonesia, the vast majority of illegal drug users are methamphetamine users. Second, we need to be aware of the emergence of non-controlled chemicals such as ephedrine, pseudoephedrine, and P2P that are used to circumvent precursors controlled by law enforcement agencies. Third, the dynamics of new synthetic substances or NPS in East and Southeast Asia trends that mimic the illegal drugs that includes methazymes, happy water, and party lollipops. Thank you very much, Ms. Kevin Pade, for your presentation. Please stay connected on this platform. We will have a discussion session soon. The honorable audiences, we will now proceed to the fourth part of our webinar, the discussion session that we all might have been eagerly waiting for. In this session, we invite you to deliver your questions in two alternative ways. First, you can deliver your questions orally or directly by using raising hand feature on our platform. Second, you can pose or type your question on Slido, whose link is now available in our chat room. Either way, please kindly deliver your question briefly and straightforward. You may prepare your questions from now on. In the meantime, let's watch this interesting video.
Dari Sumatera hingga Papua, dari Sulawesi hingga Nusa Tenggara, kami hadir menjaga, melayani sepenuh jiwa, menorehkan segenap bakti 74 tahun Bea Cukai untuk negeri.
Well, that was a clip of Indonesian culture. Dear audiences, we will now start our first part of our discussion. The first part will be focused on those of you who will deliver questions directly or orally. Our team has selected 3 questions for this first part. And the first question will be delivered by Mr. Putra, who is now attending the same room with us. Mr. Putra, please deliver your question.
Okay. SD, Mr. Pranab, there's a question from Gia at the Slido. Is there any guidance or programs from the WCO and UNODC to assist our officer in safety handling the drug seizure? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Putra. Let me resume his question. To Mr. Das and Ms. Kevin Pade, is there any guidance or program from the WCO and the UNODC to assist our officers in safely handling the drug seizures? Thank you. Maybe we can start from Mr. Pranab Kumar Das. Mr. Pranab, with all due respect, your answer, please, to this question.
Thank you for the question. It's a very important question, particularly when we know that there are a large number of drugs which are very dangerous to handle. Some of the drugs also can be very fatal, and so therefore very, very important to have the safety in mind while handling these ones, and our officers definitely need guidance. So we have the technical handbook, which is the handbook which is being published by a Colibri project, and we intend disseminating through our the sensitization program, the various the capacity building activities we undertake, which sensitizes various aspects of the drugs as it develops. So WCO definitely has this very much in our mind, while disseminating, starting from the scoping mission to the capacity building and in our joint operations. All these areas, these are the things we want to highlight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pranab. So the WCO, as part of the Drug and Precursors Program, has written a technical book for guiding law enforcement agencies in safely handling drug seizures as part of Colibri project. Thank you, Mr. Pranab Kumar Das. Ms. Kevin Pade, your answer, please.
Yes, thank you very much for your question. And also just to build upon what Mr. Panos, at UNODC, we also have some guidance materials out with regard to the disposal of chemicals using the illicit manufacture of drugs. We have one guide that was produced in 2011 and another one that was produced a few years ago. I will drop links to both of them inside the chat so you can have a look at them as well. And this information might be useful because it goes into what kind of equipment is needed and also what kind of things you might have to look out for. But particularly when it comes to different chemicals, I would just like to highlight that, of course, the level of what chemicals are hazardous is, of course, different from chemical to chemical. So as part of this, it's also very important to be able to detect what it is that you're actually handling as part of it, because you might need more protection for some chemicals than others. So I will drop a link to both of those documents inside the Teams chat, and then they can also be shared to participants afterwards as well.
Thank you, Ms. Kevin Pade. So the UNODC has also developed a guidance book, and the book is now available in our chat room shared by Ms. Kevin Pade. Thank you very much, Ms. Kevin Pade, for sharing the book to all of us. Okay, next, we will move to the second question. Yep.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Gilang Aditomo. I'm from Langsa Customs Office. I want to ask a question. If we look history, we know in 1800 there was an opium war between China and England. It caused China lost the war, and Hong Kong, part of China, fell into England's hands. Opium war caused so many wealth of China turned into England, and so many people of China became addicted. If you look today, there is so many drugs entering Indonesia from Aceh gates. And everybody know Indonesia is very rich country. We have so many resources. Mr. Syarif Hidayat said that the drugs addiction is one way to carry out a proxy war. The question is, can we say that Indonesia in current condition is experiencing that thing that might resemble with opium war? Or Indonesia is just a profitable market for drugs dealer? Jadi kesimpulannya, apakah menurut Bapak ada alasan khusus ya mengapa Indonesia menjadi pusat masuknya narkoba yang berkaitan misalnya dengan proxy war, atau hanya karena Indonesia ini menjadi pasar yang menguntungkan bagi para bandar, Pak Ijit? Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Terima kasih, Mas. Bapak Sarif, pertanyaan dari rekan kami. Dengan Indonesia sebagai salah satu pasar illegal drugs yang potensial, apakah itu bagian dari proxy war atau hanya pertimbangan bisnis saja? Barangkali demikian pertanyaan Bapak Sarif. Silakan Bapak.
Thank you very much for a very interesting question. So the question is information for Kevin Fedi and also Mr. Pranab Kumar. That the question is asking whether so many drugs come into Indonesia. It is a proxy wars, or it is just only an economical background like that. Yeah, just only to get profit, so many profit. So I think the certain things is that this is really a business. Yeah, this is really a business. Yeah, for the time being, we see that this is a business because, as you see from the data which already shown by Kevin and also Pranab Kumar, that the price, yeah, the price of narcotics, the price of methamphetamine in Thailand and Myanmar, even in Myanmar, yeah, only about $1 for milligram, yeah, for gram, sorry, for a gram. While in Indonesia, it's maybe about more than 10 US dollar, more than 10 US dollar for 1 gram. So the discrepancy of the price, this is led to people who seeks the benefit, who seek the profit from selling the goods, become a very, very interesting for them. So I think this is what we see now, that why so many drugs come into Indonesia, mainly because of the different price. A very high price in Indonesia, while a very low price in the production side, even in Thailand. But this is the current analysis of us. But probably further, we never know about this. But we could do the research further. It could be a kind of proxy war. It could be a kind of proxy war to make Indonesia become less developed countries, become less developed country, in order to get their influence to cover Indonesia in the future, probably. But this probably a kind of hypothesis that we have to analyze carefully, because we cannot do blaming any other countries right now about this one. But it a kind of possibility. But for sure, this is now mainly for the profit, that a very big spread between the price led to them to get money as much as possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sarif. So far, in Mr. Sarif's point of view, so far it is still limited to business interest, but it's not impossible that in the future the proxy war will be involved in this business as well.
I have a question. Can I?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question actually. I'm so sorry, Mr. Pranab. We met before many times, and also Mrs. Kevin Fadi. Thank you very much for having together in this very important sharing information. Yeah, really, so many new information that we got from here now. Now, all of many of Indonesian officials understand that how big the drugs. Yeah, I really surprised that. When already presented that around 190 ton drugs around Thailand, around Thailand. So when we see this number, we just see that Indonesia around 6,000. It seems not so big compared to what already intercepted in Thailand area. So this is led me to a question. Yeah. Maybe Pak Pranab could answer, or also Kevin Fedi could answer. Yeah, my question is there any international effort? Yeah, is there any effort from WCO or United Nations, maybe through the UNODC, to press the production side, yeah, because you know that so many drug coming out from Myanmar, area from Shan Province. We intercept so many drugs around, but what actually international community do to the Myanmar itself? Yeah? Is there any effort to eradicate those production sites? Is there any effort to do, maybe we could do an international effort to have a war with the drug lords like that, maybe, or whatever? Because if this is still like this, we are in a big difficulties, and every time should be like this. The supply side, there is no effort from us to eradicate, yeah, or to decrease the supply side. Actually, if we could do that, then maybe the demand side also will be decreases. So thank you very much. Maybe Pak Pranab or Mr. Kavin Fedi could answer this one. Thank you very much, Ananta. Thank you.
Thank you, Saif. Actually, to tell you very frankly, the dismantling of the production sites is basically the agenda of the national administration. We cannot, from the international organizations, whether UNODC or WCO, can possibly enter into that area. What possibly can be done, as you rightly mentioned, is demand and supply side. So demand side is not only the national demands, but also the international demand. So we have to sensitize the civil society of the ill effects of the drugs. We have to sensitize our young population, particularly the future generations which are being devastated by this dangerous trend. We have to also ensure that all the efforts of the stakeholders, whether it is national customs administrations or various the regulatory authorities in the national administrations, as well as international organizations, think tanks, academia, all of us have to have a very focused strategy. The resources have to be channelized, resources have to be mobilized and utilized in a very focused manner. D has mentioned the trend that we notice, the kind of the synthetic drugs, particularly fentanyl, is a very dangerous drug. Very small amount can be very lethal. And that is what has been also the target of many of the developed countries. They have started realizing. And many of the other countries also looking at the export control in a big manner, particularly the controlled substances, how they can control. But more importantly, there are a large number of non-controlled substances which are required to be examined, how exactly it is being diverted in the use of the nefarious production of these drugs. Other thing that you have noticed, some of the areas are quite inaccessible, particularly when the chemicals, precursor chemicals, and other components are being diverted from the illicit trade to the illicit area in very inaccessible area where the fraudsters they set up the factories, fraudsters set up the laboratories. So therefore, it is very essential that all national international efforts have to be combined. So there has to be sensitization effort, there has to be capacity building efforts, there has to be funding, collation, and the entire synergizing of the approach from all international organizations. As you see, we have the CCP program along with UNODC, and now we are going into the AirCup program and then combining it into the passenger and facilitation and the cargo targeting areas. So what is important is that we have to empower our people, both the demand side as well as the supply side. So both human resources, financial resources, the technological resources, everything has to be combined. And eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, as they say. So we have to be vigilant. The criminals have deep pockets, and to admit the national administrations all over cannot match the financial resources these fraudsters have. So therefore, importance is to collaboratively approach the entire issue in a very unified and focused manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pranab. Mr. Pranab has outlined the WCO strategies in combating illegal drug trafficking from both demand side and supply side. And now we will move on to Ms. Kevin Pade from the perspective of the UNODC. Mr. Sarif asked that given the vast amount or number of seizures every year in market countries, is there anything that the UNODC can do to the sources countries? Ms. Kevin Pade, please.
As I always echo Mr. Fernandez, as an international organization, we cannot conduct an operation directly into the country. It is a matter of national administrations. But what we can do, at least on the side of UNODC, as I mentioned, these drugs, they need chemicals to be produced. So UNODC has several programs with regard to precursor chemicals, and especially non-controlled chemicals in particularly, that should be targeted by authorities so that we can prevent them being diverted to actually be produced into these synthetic drugs. As I mentioned, right now there are already some controlled chemicals, but there are also non-controlled chemicals that are increasingly being used, and it is very important to understand what these chemicals are, and also for authorities to actually monitor and keep track of these chemicals, because once they're non-controlled, I understand that you don't usually check whether these chemicals are coming through, but it's very important to have this understanding. As an example, in Thailand recently controlled benzyl cyanide, which is a non-controlled chemical internationally, but can be used to produce a controlled chemical, P2P. And the reason they were able to control this chemical is because their drug forensics were able to identify from the impurities in the crystal methamphetamine that benzyl cyanide was used as a precursor for the methamphetamine that they were seizing. And from that information, they were able to make a policy change to control benzyl cyanide. So I think the combination of these, not only from the law enforcement side, but also from the forensic side, to better understand what sort of chemicals should be controlled, perhaps also understanding from the neighboring countries what chemicals they've been seizing together with the controlled chemicals, so that maybe controls can be implemented, if not on the international level yet, but at least in the national level, to make sure that any of these chemicals that could be transferred to production sites are intercepted before they make it there.
I'll just add to that what Dee has mentioned. Along with INCB, WCO is also aligning an expert group to find out what are the possible areas in which these issue can be addressed in a holistic manner.
Well, thank you, Ms. Kevin Pade and Ms. Pranab Kumar Das. Ms. Kevin Pade outlined that the UNODC, due to some limitation in resources and authority, probably, so the UNODC focuses on researching and reporting and data sharing, but the UNODC and WCO try to build effective coordination and collaboration among countries, and by data sharing, as the result of their studies or research that includes modus operandi, production and marketing tactics, and fostering regional and global collaboration. Well, we will now move on to the next question that is posed on Slido. Our team has selected some questions, more precisely some most frequently asked questions on Slido. The first question is from Mr. Gilang Rizky. Mr. Gilang Rizky, what strategies are being implemented to address the growing issue of drug trafficking via online platforms and dark web marketplaces? Maybe for the first, Mr. Sarif can answer this question. Mr. Sarif, your answer, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. So now the trading of drugs which already come into Indonesia and also from foreign country sold online. Yeah. So our effort actually now is doing what we call the cyber crawling. We investigate, we see, we learn, and we go deep inside the dark webs and also the online sale of any chemicals or of any precursors or of any good that could be used as in a production of drugs. And then we do observe carefully and see and intercept, if necessary, do the control delivery to uncover this one. So I think that is what we are now doing in Indonesian custom, that we are now observing carefully, learn carefully the online trading, the online platform, because many of the drugs, many of the precursors and many of the chemical, even the machine for production is traded online. By observing this online market, then we could find the source, and we could also find the venue or the one who buy or who are having intention to make kind of clandestine like. So I think that is Gilang. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sarif. Thank you, Mr. Sarif. So the DGCE has developed and implemented a cyber crawling program that aims to find or identify information from online sources that is related to narcotic trafficking. Thank you, Mr. Sarif. Next question.
I'll support what Mr. Sarif just mentioned. Apart from the cyber crawling and having controlled delivery, what is more important also is to have the countries joining together, the international cooperation agreements, because many of the times the evidence sharing is important while at the stage of prosecution or at the stage of, let's say, the forfeiture of criminal proceeds in case it involves any money laundering or terror financing kind of activities therein. So therefore, what is important is to evidence sharing on an international scale has to be, initiated in a big way, and the international agreements, because many of the things are rooted through the mutual assistance agreements. So the countries must agree to share this information in a time-bound manner.
Thank you, Mr. Pranab. So Mr. Pranab emphasized the importance of evidence and information sharing among law enforcement agencies and even among countries, and not only for narcotic trafficking, but also for other transnational crime like money laundering. Thank you. Next question. For participants who raised hand.
Henry.
Mr.
Henry Manuel.
Okay, Mr. Henry, please deliver your question. Time is yours.
Thank you, Pak Sahat. Mohon izin, Pak Sarif, Pak Direktur. Mr. Pranab and Ms. D, thank you for your presentation. I'm now stationed in the border, Indonesian with Malaysia in Sarawak, in one of the posts in Badau, West Kalimantan. I see from your presentation that most of the route is from the sea. There is little from the Kalimantan Island atau Borneo Island or the Borneo Island. In my under my control, there is about 70 more than 70 entry point where there is no customs control from that entry point, and I don't know if there is any data that from Malaysia or from other country that's entering Indonesia without any declaration. So my point is there any guidance from the WCO or from the Directorate of Interdiction about how we can cooperate between countries, and also gathering data, not just movement of goods, but also people without any presentation of custom in their territory. That is my question. Thank you very much.
Henry, your question is very, very relevant, particularly among the island nations where large number of entry points should be there. It's not that customs can be present everywhere, but more importantly, it is, as I mentioned, the international cooperation between countries, the mutual assistance agreement. WCO has got draft model mutual assistance agreement model. So probably the countries can use that and have that agreement, and also they share the data. See, importance is data sharing, importance is the intelligence sharing, importance is using the various secure mode of exchanging information, and also the customs to customs and agency to agency cooperation. But the cross-border agencies are too many. As you say, customs may not be having the presence, but the other border agencies may be having. Like I was head of Indian Customs before joining in WCO. In Indian Customs, we have also empowered the border police. We have empowered certain the other law enforcement military the military organizations as customs officers. We have given them the power to have implement the Customs Act, particularly in the border areas where the customs presence is not there. So perhaps that can be considered by Indonesia in providing similar kind of the powers of customs to other agencies who are positioned maybe from the military or from the police, border police organizations. So, I mean, definitely the opportunities are there and the challenges are many. So how best we have to address it to the best of our ability is more important.
Thank you, Mr. Pranab. So Mr. Pranab again emphasized the importance of data sharing and collaboration. And for this point, probably Ms. Kevin Fede can give you her point of view, given that the UN ODC has extensive research or studies, including in Indonesian region. So for the question of Mr. Henry, given the data that there are over 70 points of entry across the border of Kalimantan and Malaysia, and the vast majority of the region is not guarded by maybe law enforcement agencies, including customs agencies. Any advice, Ms. Kevin Fade? Time is yours.
Thank you very much. I would just like to echo Mr. Pranab as well, especially on the first point, which is interagency cooperation. Because, the information that is shared among different agencies, you will have different pieces of information that might be related to the same case. But if this is not shared between the agencies, then the operation would be very difficult to be successful, because you need all these different eyes on the ground, particularly with so many different entry points into the country. As we know, maritime is very, very difficult to keep track of because of all the ways that they can come in. And it's also very hard to just look out and see where they might be coming from. Also, in terms of cooperation with other countries, I would also like to highlight this as well, because in many of the cases that we've seen, the traffickers are not just from one country. Sometimes they're from a neighboring country, sometimes from another country. And this sort of information needs to be shared with those countries, between those countries as well, especially from Malaysia. If you can have a good connection with the Malaysian authorities on the trafficking routes, their suspects, and then you can have a better track of what might be coming in to Indonesia through these different ways. And also, they might have information on where it might be going, especially through West Kalimantan, might be going through other areas that are beyond that. So this cooperation between countries is very essential in terms of interagency cooperation nationally and also interagency cooperation internationally. And there should be mechanisms, not just formal mechanisms, but also informal mechanisms, if you can have them, so that the transfer of this information can be faster. Because as we know, for formal routes, sometimes it takes a very, very long time. And by then, the traffic has already come and gone. So to have these informal networks, whatever they may be, would be very helpful for you to actually address these in a timely manner.
Well, thank you, Ms. Kevin, for this. So I think the WCO and the UN ODC has the same perspective on this issue. So law enforcement agency has to be able to build effective collaboration and both among local law enforcement agencies, regionally and globally. And each country has to have the same sense of urgency and the same sense of priority on this issue. Okay, thank you. Next, we will move to the next question posed on Slido. The question is posed by Miss or Mrs. maybe, Miss Dipa Triprasetya from the Directorate of Narcotic Interdiction, the same team as Mr. Sarif. Her question is, how does the UNODC monitor the development of chemicals that have recently been identified as potential precursors for narcotic production? Ms. Kavit Pade, your answers, please, for this question. Time is yours.
Thank you very much. For at least for this region, as I mentioned, we have information of seizures that have been made at illicit production sites outside of Shan State, Myanmar, and also seizures that have been made en route to production sites, and seizures that have been made in conjunction with controlled chemicals. We also have information on the different synthesis routes that can be used, and together with this information, we can from drug forensics, we can have a better understanding of what these new and uncontrolled chemicals are. So we'll be monitoring through different ways. We're also monitoring through seizures that have been made in other regions as well. And also we have some information on, we have been monitoring, particularly, as I mentioned, when it comes to synthesis routes and what chemicals are being used, it is very important to work together with laboratory personnel to understand the synthesis routes, what methods are being used, and from there we can trace and track what kind of chemicals are being used to produce them. So in combination, with all these different sorts of information, we have been trying to build information on what chemicals might be seized, but also we also have our own internal information on what the different chemicals can be used for. So they might be solvents, they might be adulterants, and the combination of all this information helps us understand better what sort of chemicals are being produced. But of course, on top of this, we also need information from the countries, particularly through our precursor program, on what chemicals are actually being used for illicit purposes in the different countries. Because these non-controlled chemicals can be used for illicit purposes as well. So to have a better understanding of how the amounts that are needed for each chemical in the respective countries also helps us understand if there is a higher amount of a particular chemical that is being used, could that also be a sign that is being diverted for illicit production? So it's a combination of looking at all of these different factors on what chemicals might be relevant for control.
Well, thank you, Ms. Kavanpade. Ms. Diva, we hope that your question has already been adequately covered. Okay. So, dear audiences, we are really grateful sincerely for your participation in this discussion session. We will soon conclude our webinar. But before concluding our webinar, we would like to respectfully ask our speakers to give closing remark. We will start from Mr. Pranab. Your closing remark, please. Time is yours.
Thank you, Sehat. Thank you. I must thank Mr. Eskolani and the Indonesian Customs and Excise for this wonderful seminar. This kind of seminar brings together not only the knowledge and the expertise that the different organizations have, but also the kind of trend that we notice, that kind of the data sharing that we find. It will help the knowledge base of our the customs and the community. So we look forward to similar kind of seminars and similar kind of information sharing exercise being conducted by Indonesia in future. And I thank once again the organizers for giving us the opportunity to share our views. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pranam Kumardas. Next, Ms. Kavit Pade Supapong Tepasakul, your closing remark, please. Time is yours.
First of all, thank you very much as well for the Indonesian Director on Customs and Excise for organizing this very important seminar series. It's very great to hear from the different viewpoints and also to hear your questions on what matters are important for your concern as well, because this will also help us at UNODC understand what sort of support we can provide to you in the future for your work. So thank you very much for inviting us for that. It was always, of course, very important to hear not only the situation from your side, but also what capacity building activities, what support can be provided, not only by UNODC, but by the WCO and other organizations as well. So as we go forward together on this, as you know, very multi-agency, very, very difficult issue, we can find ways to work together to address this problem. So thank you very, very much for the invitation and for allowing UNODC to have the opportunity to speak at this seminar.
Thank you, Ms. Kevin Pade, for your closing remarks. Last but not least, Mr. Syarif Hidayat, Bapak Syarif, dengan hormat pernyataan penutup dari Bapak. Silakan Bapak.
Okay, thank you very much. As we already having a good discussion today, we see there is a big production of narcotic and also a big market around the world. And we also having several common thing amongst countries around the world. Yeah, that's narcotic is a common enemy, not only for us, but only for other country, wherever in this world. And this means that we have to collaborate. All of the countries, all of the international organizations should collaborate better in the future, because the mafia of narcotic, they are collaborate. So we have to collaborate much more better than they. And I hope that this collaboration could push down the demand side everywhere, and also could push down the supply side through our collaborative effort in order to protect the world society in a world without drugs. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Syarif. So our three speakers agree on one issue, that narcotic is our shared or joint enemies. So collaboration among law enforcement agencies, among countries regionally and globally is imperative for all of us. Dear audiences, distinguished speakers, our webinar will come to an end. Before concluding our webinar, let me read out some noteworthy key takeaways of our discussion today. Our speakers from the WCO, the UNODC, and the DGCE outlined some significant global trends as well as emerging challenges we need to be seriously on alert for. One, drug trafficking has been used by some syndicates as funding source for insurgencies and terrorism. Second, drug crime has the potential as a proxy war weapon in weakening a nation by destroying human resources. Third, methamphetamine continues to be the primary drugs of concern. Seizures of methamphetamine in East and Southeast Asia region increased by over 300% in the last decade. The wholesale price of crystal methamphetamine decreased by 20 to over 50% in some East and Southeast Asia countries in the last 5 years, making it more accessible to drug users. In Indonesia, the vast majority of drug users are methamphetamine users. Law enforcement agencies have to be aware of the emergence of non-controlled chemicals such as ephedrine, pseudoephedrine, and P2P that are used by traffickers to circumvent precursors controls by law enforcement agencies. Lastly, the dynamics of new synthetic substances or NPS in East and Southeast Asia that mimic the illegal drugs such as nitazenes, happy water, and party lollipops. In order to face the challenges, the WCO, the UNODC, and DGCE emphasizes some strategic responses. One, the importance of effective collaborations interagencies, regionally and globally. Two, the importance of data-driven approaches and the use of innovative tools. Three, the importance of sustainable capacity building to keep pace with the traffickers' tactics. In addition to that, the WCO initiated and implemented drugs and precursors program that mainly consists of 4 components: Colibri project, synthetic drug and detection project, container control program, and dog detection program. Specific for Indonesian context, the DGCE developed customs laboratory support at the main entrances to Indonesia. Dear audiences, distinguished speakers, the future depends on what we do in the present. Mahatma Gandhi. Combating illegal drug trafficking faces us with heaps of challenges. It is a marathon rather than a sprint. But if all of us have the same sense of energy, if we feel the same urgency, if we feel the same passion and hope, there is no doubt that we are capable of protecting our nation from illegal drug trafficking. Ultimately, the shared dream that we all have envisioned, the great nation, will finally come into being. Dear speakers, we are sincerely grateful for your exceptional contribution today. We understand that it must have taken considerable efforts to prepare and deliver such impactful presentation. We look forward to the possibility of learning from you further or working with you in the future. Thank you abundantly. Dhanyavad, Mr. Pranav Kumar Das. Kopkun Mat, Ms. Kavin Pade. Terima kasih Bapak Syarif Hidayat. And to all participants, thank you very much. The future depends on what we do in the present. Mahatma Gandhi. Our best regard. Thank you. Klima,
Thank you very
turn.
much, Pak Pranav. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Kapal Padi.
much.
See you later someday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sehat, for leading such a fruitful discussion, and to all participants who have engaged on today's debate. This also ends up and summed up all the agenda we have in this beautiful morning. Well, before we say goodbye, I'd like to thank to all of the committee, including Bapak Nana, Head of Narcotics and Prohibited Goods Section of Aceh Regional Customs and Excise Office, as our team coordinator, for all of the effort and making things possible. And to all guest speakers, thank you so much for spending time with us so that we could learn a lot of things from you. And once again, thank you for all participants for coming. And most important things, do not forget to fill in your attendance list, because soon we'll send an e-certificate to all eligible participants. Hope everyone can have a very good time on today's webinar, and thank you so much for your attention. See you on the next webinar series. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi, Santi, Santi Om. Have a good day, everyone.